Chapter 110. Chapter 110, The Start of the Competition. 5496903339. Haha, you're looming, right? I've heard this little girl Elena mention you so many times, and I've long wanted to come and see you. Ian, now that I've seen you, you're indeed not bad, you can be called a dragon among men. The Vermilion Bird Hall's dean sized Looming up carefully, stroking his white beard and nodding his head. You're too kind, Director, Looming said humbly. However, he was still a 16-year-old teenager after all. To be praised by such a big shot, he was still happy in his heart, and his face could not help but reveal a smile. Grandpa, don't praise him. Look at how proud he is. Mulan glanced at Looming and said. Senior Sister Mulan, are you jealous? Haha. Looming smiled. You're the one who's jealous. Boy, now that you're on the bronze list, you're getting bolder, aren't you? Mulan gritted her teeth and glared at Looming fiercely. On the side, Feng Wu, Pang Shu, Hua Kai, and the others couldn't help but burst out laughing, their faces turning red. Senior Sister Mulan, what's wrong with me being proud of the dean's praise? This is the principal. Shouldn't I be proud to be able to get the principal's approval? Isn't that right, Director? Looming said and looked at the dean. Ha ha ha, little guy, I like your true nature. You should be proud of yourself, but you can't underestimate your enemy later. The Vermilion Bird Hall chief laughed. Thank you for your reminder, Headmaster. Looming cupped his fists again. Detestable. Mulan gritted her teeth and left with the Vermilion Bird Hall chief. They returned to their seats. Poochie. After Mulan left, Feng Wu and the others couldn't hold it in any longer and burst out laughing. Looming, let me tell you. Sister Mulan is very vengeful. You have to be careful in the future. Feng Wu said, laughing. All of a sudden, she saw Mulan's fierce gaze from not far away. Her expression immediately turned serious and her smile disappeared without a trace. Looming was shocked by the speed of the change. The other Vermilion Bird Hall disciples cast envious looks at Looming. The head of the Vermilion Bird Hall had come to see him in person and even praised him in public. What an honor! This meant that the Vermilion Bird Hall's dean admired Looming. This was a treatment that even Cheng Feiyu, who was ranked in the top 10 of the Vermilion Bird Hall's bronze ranking, did not have. Buzz. BZZZZ. At this moment, a few rays of light suddenly flew out from the depths of the mystical sword sect. The dazzling light pierced through the void and arrived above the fighting ring in an instant. Welcome, sect leader. As soon as they arrived, the deans of the 4 halls and the Silivra-robed elders got up and packed their bags. Sect master? Looming and the rest were shocked that the sect master had arrived. They quickly stood up and said, Welcome, sect leader. More than 50,000 disciples shouted in unison, their voices shaking the world. No need to be so polite, sit down. A calm and clear voice sounded. The voice seemed to come from the sky, but it also seemed to have come from everyone's ears. It was very strange. Looming looked up and saw 7 figures in the sky. The person in the lead looked to be in his 40s. He had a handsome face and long black hair. He was dressed in a snow-white robe as he stood in the air. It was as if he was the center of the entire world. He did not emit any aura, but in Looming's eyes, he was like an endless ocean, unfathomable and giving off a terrifying pressure. Is this the sect master of the mystical sword sect? One of the overlords of the Burning Sun Empire, Flying Snow Godsword, Lin Shui. Looming's heart stirred. Behind the sect leader of the mystical sword sect were 2 gold-robed elders and 4 Silivra-robed elders. Then, the sect leader and the 6 elders of the mystical sword sect flew down and landed on the highest point of the northern stands. That place was specially prepared for the sect leader and the others. Everyone's here, right? Let's start. The sect leader of the mystical sword sect announced with a wave of his hand. As soon as the sect leader finished speaking, a Silivra-robed elder flew up to the fighting ring and began to introduce the rules of the competition. The rules were simple. There were 60 people in total, and they would be assigned numbers according to their previous ranking. Previously, Looming had killed Yao Tianyu and naturally replaced his ranking. He was ranked 51st and his number was 51. The 60 people would fight in pairs and draw lots to decide their opponents. The winner would enter the top 30, and the loser would be eliminated. However, after the top 30 were decided, there would be another challenge. The elders of the 4 halls and the elders of the sect would discuss together and choose 10 powerful geniuses to challenge the 30 geniuses who had advanced earlier. As long as they won, they would be able to replace the other party and enter the top 30. This was for the sake of fairness, because some people might be very strong, but their luck was bad at the beginning, and they would draw the geniuses in the top few places, so they would lose somewhat unjustly. This way, they could avoid the stronger geniuses from being eliminated early due to bad luck. This was related to the interests of the 4 halls, so it was natural to be fair. The rules were the same for the top 15 from the top 30. The top 10 would be chosen and the final ranking would be decided by a round of battles. There were many rewards for entering the top 10. Other things aside, Lu Ming was very envious of the contribution points. Alright, I'm sure everyone knows the rules. Now, the disciples on the bronze rank can come up to draw lots. The Silver-robed elder announced. Lu Ming stood up and walked onto the fighting ring. People from the 4 great academies walked up to the fighting ring. In the end, there were 60 people in total. Everyone's eyes were focused on these 60 people. They would be the main characters for the next few days. Look, that's Zhong Muyun. He's ranked first on the Azure Dragon Hall's bronze ranking. He's so handsome, talented, and handsome. I wish I could marry him. Stop dreaming. I heard that Zhong Muyun and the 7th ranked Shui Erong are a couple. You can stop dreaming. Ah! Look, that's Lu Ming, this year's newcomer king. He rushed into the bronze rank in his first year. It's too shocking and he's so handsome. He doesn't have a girlfriend, right? I've decided, I'm going to chase him. You! Why would Lu Ming be interested in you? On the field, the female disciples of the 4 halls were chattering and discussing with great interest. Instantly, some of the male disciples were displeased. Although Lu Ming is talented, it's not his time yet. I don't think he will pass the first round. That's for sure. It's impossible for him to pass the first round and enter the top 30. Even if he's lucky enough to pass, he'll still be replaced by others. The male disciples said unhappily. In the White Tiger Hall's area, there were 2 people who were staring at Lu Ming. One of them was a young lady in a white dress, and her beauty was unparalleled. She was Lu Yarrow, who had disappeared the moment she joined the mystical sword sect. Her father, Lu Yunxiong, was sitting beside her. At that moment, Lu Yarrow's face darkened as she looked at Lu Ming's tall and straight figure on the fighting ring. She had been humiliated during the Lu family's grand competition and hated Lu Ming to the core. She wanted to take revenge on Lu Ming, so she had been cultivating in seclusion ever since she entered the mystical sword sect. This cultivation took almost 9 months. Moreover, he was the fiancé of the peerless genius Duanmu Lin, so the Duanmu family was naturally not stingy with their resources. With the help of a large amount of resources, Lu Yarrow's cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. She had broken through all the barriers and when she came out a few days ago, she had already reached the 6th grade master realm. Chapter 111. Chapter 111, The Arrogant Duanmu Family. 5496903339. At first, she thought that with such a cultivation base, she would be able to trample on Lu Ming and humiliate him 10 times or 100 times more. However, she did not expect that after she came out of seclusion, Lu Yunxiong would tell her that Lu Ming had killed Yarrow Tianyu, made it to the bronze rank, and was going to participate in the great competition of the 4 courtyards. The moment she heard it, she was stunned. It was simply unbelievable and unacceptable. She thought that she had heard wrong. She could not bear it. She was full of confidence and thought that she could trample on Lu Ming. However, the truth was the opposite. She had spent a lot of resources but she was getting further and further away from Lu Ming. Lu Ming, that little bastard. How did he improve so quickly? God is really unfair to let this little bastard have such strong talent. On the side, Lu Yunxiong gritted his teeth, his voice extremely gloomy. No matter how strong Lu Ming is, he's just trash in front of Brother Lin. Lu Yarrow said in a deep voice. Haha, Miss Lu is right. How can Lu Ming, that little bastard, compare to young Master Lin? His worlds apart. Many young men from the Duanmu family sat beside Lu Yarrow and the others. One of them sneered. That's right. Moreover, Lu Ming won't be able to go far in this competition. If he meets a genius from the Duanmu family, he'll definitely be crippled. Even if he's lucky enough to make it into the top 30, the geniuses from the Duanmu family will definitely challenge him at the first opportunity. Another youth said. That's good. With the heroes of the Duanmu family here, I can rest assured. Lu Yunxiong laughed. Lu Ming had no idea about this. In the fighting ring, tens of thousands of eyes were looking at them. Among the 60 people, some were so excited that their faces turned red. Some were rubbing their fists and wiping their palms. They glanced at the others with hostility. There were also some who were calm and composed, with all kinds of expressions. Lu Ming smiled faintly, his eyes filled with anticipation. First, the Silver-robed elders would draw 30 people, and then these 30 people would draw the remaining 30 people. Whoever was drawn would be their opponent in the first round. Lu Ming was one of the first 30 people to be drawn. Then, Lu Ming and the other 30 people went up to draw lots. Very soon, the drawing of lots was completed. Lu Ming had drawn number 46. Number 46. I'm quite lucky. Lu Ming smiled and registered the Silver-robed elder with it. Then, he returned to his seat. Lu Ming, what number did you draw? Feng Wu hurriedly asked. Number 46. Lu Ming said with a smile. Number 46, Yun Feng from the Onyx Tortoise Hall. Lu Ming, you're in luck. Hua Kai asked in surprise. Lu Ming smiled. He was not too bothered. To him, it was just a battle no matter who he drew. Clang. A melodious bell rang, indicating that the exciting great competition of the 4 courtyards was about to begin. Now, the great competition of the 4 courtyards officially begins. Before it begins, you must pay attention to one of the most basic rules. In this competition, you can't harm your life. You can do whatever you want with other things. Also, you can't use any medicinal pills to improve your combat strength, except for secret skills. Now, let's officially begin. The first battle, number 60 versus number 23. On the fighting ring, the Silver-robed elder announced. Number 60? Isn't that the genius from the Vermilion Bird Hall, Liu Hui, who just entered the bronze ranking? Lu Ming had an idea. In the Vermilion Bird Hall area, an ordinary-looking, thin young man walked out of the crowd and went up to the fighting ring. Haha, I'm so lucky to have met the trash from the Vermilion Bird Hall. From the White Tiger Hall's area, a loud laugh was heard. Then, a young man appeared on the fighting ring with a few leaps. Number 23, Duanmu Yunchong of the Duanmu family. Lu Ming muttered. The Duanmu family has indeed produced many talents in recent years. Feng Wu said with a grim look in her eyes. On the fighting ring, Duanmu Yunchong looked at Liu Hui with a mocking expression and said, Trash from the Vermilion Bird Hall, kneel down and admit defeat now. Otherwise, you'll be in for it. Liu Hui's expression was unsightly as he stared at Duanmu Yunchong without saying a word. His eyes were filled with determination. Trash, it seems like you really want to fight me. Don't worry, I can defeat you with one move. I'll let you know that it was only luck that you managed to get into the bronze rank. Also, let me tell you, your Vermilion Bird Hall is destined to be swept away this time. Don't even think about getting into the top 10. Duanmu Yunchong sneered. He was extremely arrogant and haughty. Damn it, the Duanmu family is really fucking despicable. You still want to sweep us aside? Dream on. Senior sister Cheng Feichen will definitely be in the top 10. The Vermilion Bird Hall disciples were all furious as they cursed. A bunch of nonsense, you only know how to talk. On the fighting ring, Duanmu Yunchong said with a disdainful expression. Liu Hui's face was gloomy. He tightly held the hilt of his sword with one hand and stared at Duanmu Yunchong. Suddenly, Liu Hui rushed out. His long sword was unsheathed and turned into a ray of silver light, piercing toward Duanmu Yunchong. Lu Ming could tell at a glance that Liu Hui was performing a black-level low-rank sword technique. However, He had only just reached the second level. Small tricks. Duanmu Yunchong coldly sneered. His body moved and he dodged Liu Hui's attack. Black-grade low-level movement technique. At the same time, Duanmu Yunchong struck out with his palm. The wind from his palm whistled like thunder. A black-grade low-level palm technique, another black-grade martial arts technique. It was obvious that Duanmu Yunchong had mastered two profound grade martial skills. When they were used in pairs, they were as fast as lightning and as fast as thunder, increasing their battle strength by a large margin. Liu Hui's sword had missed. He wanted to dodge, but it was too late. He could only use his other hand to block the palm. However, Liu Hui's palm strike was only launched out of desperation. How could it withstand Duanmu Yunchong's black-level palm energy? Bang! Liu Hui's body flew out and he retreated more than 10 meters. His face was pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Damn it, you actually dared to block my palm. You asked for it. Duanmu Yunchong bellowed in his heart. His expression was extremely gloomy. He had said that he would deal with Liu Hui in one move, but now Liu Hui had actually blocked one move. He felt that he had lost a lot of face. Buzz. Duanmu Yunchong's figure moved. He used his black-grade movement technique and moved as fast as a ghost. He instantly appeared behind Liu Hui and struck out with his palm. Although Liu Hui was on full alert and quickly slashed his sword behind him, he was still a step too slow due to his injuries. Bang! The palm hit Liu Hui's chest. Liu Hui spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. Duanmu Yunchong followed closely behind. Without giving Liu Hui the chance to catch his breath, he struck out another palm. However, this palm was aimed at Liu Hui's face. Pa! A clear sound of a slap was heard. Duanmu Yunchong had ruthlessly slapped Liu Hui's face. Liu Hui's entire body was sent flying. However, Duanmu Yunchong did not have the intention to let go. His body moved and caught up with Liu Hui. Another slap landed on Liu Hui's face. Liu Hui was sent flying and fell to the ground. Trash, I told you to admit defeat a long time ago. What now? I've beaten you like a dog. Duanmu Yunchong looked down at Liu Hui and said in disdain. Damn it, Duanmu Yunchong, don't go too far. A warrior can be killed but not humiliated. The Vermilion Bird Hall disciples were filled with righteous indignation. Someone shouted. Chapter 112. Chapter 112. Chapter 112. The First Battle. 549690339. What do you mean by a warrior can be killed but not humiliated? He's just a piece of trash. I told him to kneel down and admit defeat, but he still wanted to fight. With this little combat strength, he's simply asking to be humiliated. Duanmu Yunchong looked at the Vermilion Bird Hall's side and sneered. Damn it, I'm so angry. The Vermilion Bird Hall disciples, including Pang Shu, Hua Kai, and Feng Wu, were all flushed with anger. At the very top of the stands, the sect leader of the mystical sword sect was expressionless, as if none of this could stir his emotions. In the White Tiger Hall's area, the White Tiger Hall's headmaster stroked his beard and smiled. The head of the Vermilion Bird Hall frowned. On the fighting ring, Duanmu Yunchong curled his lips in disdain. He walked toward Liu Hui and stepped on his body. He looked down at him and sneered. Now, are we still going to fight? Admit defeat, Liu Hui. Admit defeat. Stop fighting. The Vermilion Bird Hall disciple couldn't help but call out. I admit defeat, Liu Hui said unwillingly. His eyes revealed a humiliated expression as he looked at Duanmu Yunchong. Haha, you've admitted defeat. What were you doing earlier? What do you mean by that look? If you're not willing, you're still pissing me off. Pissing me off? You're really a piece of trash. After he had finished speaking, Duanmu Yunchong kicked out and sent Liu Hui flying. Duanmu Yunchong, what are you doing? Liu Hui has already admitted defeat, yet you still attack. You have broken the rules. A Vermilion Bird Hall disciple shouted. Who said I attacked? I didn't use any strength at all. I only asked him to move away. He was blocking my foot. I lifted my foot and he flew out. Duanmu Yunchong indifferently said. Nonsense, You did it on purpose. One of the Vermilion Bird Hall disciples roared. On the fighting stage, the Sai Lever-robed elder slightly frowned. Duanmu Yunchong had indeed broken the rules. All right, Yunchong, be careful when you lift your feet next time. At this moment, an old and vigorous voice came from the White Tiger Hall. Yes, Principal. Duanmu Yunchong immediately said respectfully. The voice came from the White Tiger Hall's headmaster. On the fighting stage, the Sai Lever-robed elder frowned. However, since the White Tiger Hall's headmaster had spoken, he had no choice but to give him some face. After a moment of silence, he announced, Duanmu Yunchong wins this battle. Damn it, the Duanmu family is really shameless. Feng Wu said through gritted teeth. The other Vermilion Bird disciples were the same. A cold glint flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He suddenly said, Don't worry. This Duanmu Yunchong won't be arrogant for long. Feng Wu, Hua Kai, Pang Shi, and the others were taken aback, not understanding what Lu Ming meant. The Vermilion Bird Hall disciples went up to help Liu Hui down and the competition continued. The battle was extremely intense and exciting. The geniuses on the bronze list all had combat strength that far exceeded their peers of the same level, and they had all kinds of profound-level martial arts techniques and secret skills, which made people feel very satisfied. Especially the geniuses in the top 10, they were unimaginably powerful. No matter what kind of opponent they faced, they would be dealt with in one move. A few hours later, more than 20 matches had already passed. There were only 5 or 6 more matches left before it would end. Next round, number 51 versus number 46. The Sai Lever-robed elder announced. 51 against 46. Why are they so close in ranking? Which two? Number 51 used to be Yarrow Tianyu, so it's Lu Ming now. Number 46 is Yun Feng from the Onyx Tortoise Hall. Lu Ming. Based on the abilities that Lu Ming displayed when he killed Yarrow Tianyu, he might be able to defeat Yun Feng. He's so lucky. Indeed, we're too lucky. The Sai Lever-robed elder's words caused a wave of discussion. Back then, Yarrow Tianyu had not only cultivated a black-grade low-level martial arts technique to the second level, but his physical body had also been cultivated to complete grade 1. His combat strength had already surpassed his ranking, and some people believed that Yarrow Tianyu could already be ranked in the 5th level. Since Lu Ming was able to kill Yarrow Tianyu, his combat strength was definitely stronger than Yarrow Tianyu's. Some people had speculated that with Lu Ming's combat strength, he might be ranked around the 40th place. They all thought that Lu Ming was too lucky to be up against Yun Feng. Ch, Lu Ming, that little bastard. Why is he so lucky? In the White Tiger Hall area, Lu Yunxiong gritted his teeth. So what if I'm lucky? Even if you're lucky enough to make it into the top 30, you'll still be challenged by others. That'll be even more embarrassing. A young man from the Duanmu family sneered. Lu Ming could not be bothered with the discussions around him. He got up and went up to the fighting ring. Good luck, senior brother Lu Ming, Pang Shi shouted. However, other than Pang Shi, no one else was cheering for Lu Ming. The other Vermilion Bird Hall disciples had similar thoughts as the others. They all thought that even if Lu Ming made it into the top 30, he would be challenged by others. If they cheered for Lu Ming now, wouldn't it be even more embarrassing? A burly young man from the Black Tortoise walked up to the fighting ring. He was Yun Feng, who was ranked 46th. Lu Ming, although you're very strong, I'll give it my all in this battle. I hope you won't hold back. Yun Feng looked at Lu Ming and said loudly, I know what I'm doing, you can use your full strength. Lu Ming said. Yun Feng's eyes narrowed. Lu Ming's confidence made him not dare to be careless. He focused all his attention and exploded with all his strength. A powerful aura burst out of Yun Feng's body. Then, a red light flashed on his body. A black rhinoceros roared, and 4 chakras appeared. His bloodline burst out. Mad rhinoceros slash. Yun Feng sprinted and slashed out with the saber in his hand. A terrifying saber radiance seemed to be able to cut open the space. At this moment, Yun Feng's essence, energy, and spirit were highly concentrated. At this moment, he erupted with extraordinary strength. That's the 3rd stage of a black-grade low-level martial arts technique, and Yunfeng actually broke through. Good. A Silivra-robed elder in the Onyx Tortoise Hall's area cheered. The other people present were also shocked. They didn't expect that Yunfeng would surpass them when faced with pressure, causing his black rank martial skill to break through from the second level to the third level. Lu Ming is in danger now. Such a thought appeared in many people's minds. It's even better that you've broken through. The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. Then, he suddenly took a step forward and dashed toward Yun Peak. The long spear in his hand was pulled forward, bringing out a crescent moon. Fire gun art moon pulling. Clang. The long spear struck Yunfeng's saber, causing a loud boom. The entire fighting ring seemed to shake. Whoosh. Then, a figure flew out like a cannonball and glided more than 30 meters on the huge fighting ring that was more than 200 meters in length and width. Then, his body trembled and he knelt down, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Everyone present was dumbfounded. The figure that had been sent flying was Yunfeng. One move. With just one move, Yunfeng was sent flying by Lu Ming, spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. Even a blind person could tell that the difference between Yunfeng and Lu Ming was too great. How did this happen? How could Lu Ming be so powerful? He was simply too strong, terrifyingly strong. Was he still a newcomer this year? Yunfeng had clearly broken through right before the battle, but he was still sent flying with a single strike. Although some people had guessed that Lu Ming would win, they did not expect him to win so easily. Chapter 113. Chapter 113, I admit defeat. 549690339, they're not on the same level at all. Lu Ming's abilities are probably in the top 30. That's right. I really didn't expect him to improve at such a terrifying speed. Discussions could be heard from the surroundings. Ha ha ha, senior brother Lu Ming, you're the best. Pang Shi shouted. Lu Ming, good luck. Lu Ming, you're the most handsome. The other Vermilion Bird Hall disciples finally couldn't help but shout out in excitement. With the abilities that Lu Ming had displayed, they could finally cheer for him without worry. This kid is not bad. Eleanor, you have good eyes. The head of the Vermilion Bird Hall stroked his beard and revealed a satisfied expression. Lu Ming, maybe he can enter that place in the future. Mulan sighed. The head of the Vermilion Bird Hall's expression changed slightly. Eleanor, do you really want Lu Ming to go there? Lu Ming is still too far away from it. I know that Lu Ming is still far from it. But I believe that he will be able to do it in the near future. He has given me too many surprises. Mulan's limpid eyes flickered with hope as she looked at the slender figure standing with a spear in the fighting ring. Ari. The Vermilion Bird Hall principal sighed and did not say anything. In the area of the White Tiger Hall. Damn it, how can this little bastard be so strong? Lu Yunxiong was furious. Lu Yaro's face was extremely cold, and her eyes flickered with madness and a sinister light. She glared at Lu Ming on the fighting ring and bellowed in her heart, Lu Ming, that damned Lu Ming. You're just a bastard that I abandoned, a piece of trash. How can you be so strong? The trash that I abandoned should be trash for the rest of my life. I will not allow a trash to become stronger than me. I will not allow it. At this moment, everyone's eyes were shining with all kinds of light as they looked at the figure on the fighting ring. Other than the sect leader of the mystical sword sect, his eyes were calm and aloof, as if he was not affected by anything. But in the next moment, the sect leader's indifferent and aloof expression disappeared, and was replaced with shock. Because a voice came from the fighting ring. I admit defeat. Silence. The entire place quieted down, so much so that even a pin drop could be heard. No matter what kind of expression they had on their faces before, they all turned into one expression in an instant, a dumbfounded expression. It was because Lu Ming was the one who had said I admit defeat. It was not Yunfeng but Lu Ming. Lu Ming admitted defeat. What was happening? How did this happen? The deans of the 4 campuses were all dumbfounded. Lu Yaro and Lu Yunxiong were dumbfounded, and so were Pang Shi, Feng Wu, Hua Kai, and Mulan. The other Silivra-robed elders and gold-robed elders were also dumbfounded. What is Lu Ming trying to do? Pang Shi was tongue-tied. Lu Ming has clearly revealed his ability and he can enter the top 30. Why did he suddenly surrender? What the hell is he doing? Feng Wu frowned. That's right. His strength can easily enter the top 30. His. Hua Kai also frowned and mumbled. He suddenly stopped and his eyes lit up. He smiled and said, I know what Lu Ming is going to play. Haha, I like it. You know? Why is that? Pang Shi asked in surprise. I can't tell you now, just wait and see. Hua Kai smiled mysteriously. Pang Shi, Feng Wu, and the others all looked down on her. On the fighting ring, the Sai Lever-robed elder's eyes were wide open. He was stunned for a long time before he asked, Lu Ming, what did you say? You admit defeat? Yes, I admit defeat. Lu Ming nodded. Lu Ming, what do you mean by this? Are you looking down on me? In front, Yun Feng stood up and glared at Lu Ming. I'm not looking down on you. Don't misunderstand, I'm just admitting defeat. Lu Ming said indifferently. Yun Feng was at a loss for words. The Sai Lever-robed elder confirmed once again before helplessly announcing that Yun Feng had won this round. Lu Ming smiled and walked back to the Vermilion Bird Hall area. Fuck, Lu Ming, what are you playing at? Hurry up and tell me. Otherwise, I'm not done with you. Feng Wu glared at Lu Ming, gritting her teeth. You'll know in a while. Lu Ming said with a smile. Senior brother Lu Ming, why are you saying the same thing as the love-struck fool? I really don't understand you guys. Pang Shi scratched his head. Lu Ming and Hua Kai looked at each other and smiled. Then, the competition continued. In less than an hour, all 30 matches had ended. Among them, the 4 most popular newcomer kings. One of them was Feng Xinglie. He had not trained for long enough and met an expert who was ranked 21st. He failed. As for Lu Ming, he admitted defeat. The other 2 were extremely powerful, so they naturally advanced easily. The top 30 had already been decided, but it was not over yet. There were still challenges. The Sai Lever-robed elders from the 4 courtyards, the Sai Lever-robed elders from the sect leader's side, and the 2 gold-robed elders discussed and decided to select 10 powerful challengers. This was because there were indeed some powerful geniuses among them. If they were unlucky, they would encounter those ranked in the top 10 or those ranked in the top 10. Naturally, they were no match for them. Now, they had to give them a chance. It didn't take long for the 10 challengers to be announced. I now announce the candidates for the challenge. They are Wu Jin, Huang Fei, Lu Ming. The hosting Sai Lever-gowned elder announced. Lu Ming's name was among them. Haha, I knew it. Senior brother Lu Ming will definitely have another chance to challenge him. The abilities that he displayed just now are very powerful. Pang Shi said with a smile. At this moment, the names had been announced. The Sai Lever-robed elder said, All right, you can choose your target now. As soon as the Sai Lever-robed elder finished speaking, a figure quickly leaped onto the fighting ring. The figure was Lu Ming. The crowd was stunned again. Lu Ming had just admitted defeat and was the first one to step onto the fighting ring to issue a challenge. What was he trying to do? Lu Ming's eyes were like lightning. He turned around and looked at the White Tiger Hall. He pointed the spear in his hand and said coldly, Duanmu Yunchong, get your ass up here. The cold voice spread throughout the area, causing many people to be shocked. Then, some of them had a look of realization. I know why Lu Ming admitted defeat earlier. His goal was to obtain the right to challenge Duanmu Yunchong. Someone shouted. That's right. Before Lu Ming admitted defeat, he deliberately displayed his powerful combat strength and defeated Yun Feng in one move. He knew that even if he admitted defeat, he would still be given the right to challenge Yun Feng. He's trying to take revenge for Vermilion Bird Hall's Liu Hui. I see. This time, everyone on the field understood. On the highest grandstand, the sect leader of the mystical sword sect looked at Lu Ming curiously and muttered, This Lu Ming is indeed not bad. It's not easy to attract the sect leader's attention. A golden-robed elder smiled and said. At this moment, the entire place was in an uproar as they entered into a heated discussion. Chapter 114. Chapter 114. Chapter 114 Bullying. 54969039. Haha, so this is senior brother Lu Ming's idea. It's so complicated. No wonder I didn't think of it. Love-struck fool, you've thought of it before, haven't you? Pang Shi laughed and asked. That's right. Hua Kai smiled and nodded. When Lu Ming fought, there were only 6 or 7 matches left. He only admitted defeat after displaying his powerful abilities. Isn't that strange? I also deduced from this that he was absolutely confident that he would be selected to challenge. That's why he did that. This guy's way of doing things is really evil and unexpected. Feng Wu said, pouting. Not far away, Liu Hui's injuries had already stabilized. He muttered, Lu Ming. His eyes were filled with gratitude. The other Vermilion Bird Hall disciples' gazes changed as well. They looked at Lu Ming with admiration. However, it was different for the disciples of the White Tiger Hall, especially those from the Duanmu family. They were all furious. Damn this Lu Ming. He's trying to go against the Duanmu family. That's right. We haven't even settled all the scores from before. Now, he dares to provoke us again. Duanmu Yunchong, go. Let him know that challenging you was a mistake. Some of the Duanmu family's young men shouted. Don't worry. He admitted defeat on purpose and challenged me to stand up for Liu Hui. I will let him know how stupid his actions are. A sinister smile appeared on Duanmu Yunchong's face. He then stepped forward and appeared on the fighting ring like a ghost. Lu Ming, you want to stand up for Liu Hui. Later on, I will make you suffer 10 times more than Liu Hui. Duanmu Yunchong said in a malevolent manner. Lu Ming smiled indifferently. I've seen a lot of trash like you. Every one of them was very arrogant at the beginning. Just like Yarrow Tianyu and his gang. In the end, they all became dead dogs. That's right. All the best, senior brother Lu Ming. Beat him up until he's a dead dog. Beat him up. Avenge senior brother Liu Hui. All hail senior brother Lu Ming. All the best, senior brother Lu Ming. The Vermilion Bird Hall disciples shouted. Previously, Duanmu Yunchong had been too despicable. He had humiliated Liu Hui. The Vermilion Bird Hall's disciples were united against the common enemy. Naturally, they would stand on Lu Ming's side. Tempage, a bunch of trash. They only know how to shout. Tempage. Duanmu Yunchong snorted coldly. His face was extremely gloomy. When he looked at Lu Ming, his eyes were filled with killing intent. Buzz. All of a sudden, Duanmu Yun became impulsive and he rushed toward Lu Ming. A black-grade low-level movement technique that was as fast as lightning. However, Lu Ming stood there without moving. He had no intention of dodging. Just as Duanmu was about to reach Lu Ming's long spear swept out. The half-moon appeared and swept across the land 3 meters ahead. Duanmu Yunchong was greatly shocked. His figure rapidly retreated and dodged this attack by a hair's breadth. Lu Ming, do you think that it's useful to rely on the length of your weapon? In your dreams. Duanmu Yunchong roared loudly. His figure flickered rapidly. In an instant, there seemed to be 3 Duanmu Yunchong's figures on the field, and they rushed toward Lu Ming. This is the illusionary technique. Duanmu Yunchong has cultivated it to the 2nd level. It is said that if he were to cultivate it to the 6th level, he would be able to create 7 figures. Illusionary technique. It's both real and fake. Let's see how Lu Ming will break it. Some senior disciples discussed. Small tricks. Lu Ming's indifferent voice was heard. He swept his long spear across the 2 figures in front of him while his other hand blasted the figure behind him. In the next moment, the 2 figures in front of him disappeared. Behind him, Duanmu Yunchong's palm collided with Lu Ming's fist. Boom. A loud boom resounded. Duanmu Yunchong's expression changed greatly and his body rapidly retreated. How did this happen? Duanmu Yunchong roared. It was simply unacceptable. He was already close to Lu Ming, but he was still knocked back by Lu Ming's punch. How could they fight this? He cultivated movement and palm techniques. He was definitely not Lu Ming's match at a long distance, but he was not Lu Ming's match at a close distance. He was a little confused. Duanmu Yunchong, You are too naive if you think that you can be my opponent in close combat. Lu Ming sneered. His physical body was in the 2nd grade lower tier, and his cultivation had reached the peak of the 8th grade master realm. He was much stronger than he was 2 months ago when he fought Yao Tianyu. Duanmu Yunchong did not train his body and only relied on black grade palm techniques. How could he be Lu Ming's opponent? Buzz. The spear in Lu Ming's hands shook and vibrated violently. The spear's shaft vibrated the air and burst out with powerful airwaves that charged toward Duanmu Yun. Bang! Bang! Duanmu Yunchong sent out powerful palm strikes, shattering the airwaves created by the spear. However, Lu Ming had already arrived. Buzz! The long spear violently whipped toward Duanmu Yunchong. It was already too late for Duanmu Yunchong to retreat from this spear. Block it! Duanmu Yunchong roared. His bloodline burst out and his palms turned red. The faint sound of a tiger and leopard could be heard. Then, he pushed his palms out and hit Lu Ming's long spear with an overwhelming force. Bang! A muffled sound resounded. Then, the sound of bones breaking and Duanmu Yunchong's miserable shrieks could be heard. Like a kite with a broken string, Duanmu Yunchong's figure was sent flying far away. However, Lu Ming did not stop there. His body moved and he took a few steps forward. It was as if he was riding on the clouds as he rapidly charged towards Duanmu Yun. It was a yellow-grade high-level martial arts technique, soaring cloud steps. Although it was not as good as a black-grade movement technique, it was still much more powerful than the dragon serpent steps from before. In an instant, Lu Ming had caught up with Duanmu Yunchong, who was still floating in the air. At this moment, Duanmu Yunchong's facial features were all scrunched up due to the pain. When he saw Lu Ming chasing after him, his eyes were filled with horror and he shouted in a hoarse voice, "No, I." He was about to say "I admit defeat," but before he could say it, Lu Ming's long spear was pulled out from the bottom. Bang! Duanmu Yunchong's "I admit defeat" was forced back and turned into a mournful scream. His body was like a broken sack as he flew into the sky. He flew up more than 10 meters and landed heavily. Lu Ming pulled out his spear again and he flew up again. At this moment, Duanmu Yunchong was completely dumbfounded and muddlehead. He had completely forgotten about the matter of him admitting defeat. Everyone present was stunned. This was Lu Ming's combat strength. He was too powerful. Duanmu Yunchong would be completely abused. Lu Ming's black-level spear technique has already reached the peak of the 3rd level and is about to break through the 4th level. In addition to his strong physical body, which is suspected to be of the 2nd stage, his combat strength is very terrifying. Can't you guys see? His body technique is at the yellow level upper rank, but he has already cultivated it to the 6th level. Not bad, it's really terrifying. How long has he been in the sect? How did he cultivate in such a short time? Could this be a peerless genius? His battle strength can't have already entered the top 15, right? It's hard to say. Some of the Silevera disciples around them looked at Lu Ming in shock and disgust among themselves. However, they did not know that Lu Ming had not exerted his full strength. He had already cultivated the fire gun control art to the peak of the 4th level and had other means. If they knew, they would be shocked to the extreme. Chapter 115. Chapter 115. Chapter 115 Challenging the 2nd bronze rank. 54969039. At this moment, the Duanmu family members in the White Tiger Hall were also dumbfounded. After a long while, someone finally shouted, "Stop! Lu Ming, you bastard! Why aren't you stopping? Duanmu Yunchong has already been defeated. Why are you still not stopping? That's right. If you don't stop, you'll be breaking the rules." Breaking the rules? Lu Ming sneered. Duanmu Yunchong did not die. He did not admit defeat. How am I breaking the rules? You. The people from the Duanmu family were furious, but there was nothing they could do. Bang. Next, he sent Duanmu Yunchong flying with another spear strike. At this moment, the 4 principals had different expressions. The deans of the Black Tortoise Hall and the Azure Dragon Hall gloated and watched the show. The White Tiger Hall's headmaster's expression was extremely dark, and a terrifying aura emanated from his body. The happiest person was, of course, the Vermilion Bird Hall's director. He scratched his beard with all his might and grinned. Carefree, this was too carefree. Admit defeat. Duanmu Yunchong, quickly admit defeat. Admit defeat. The disciples of the White Tiger Hall shouted. However, Duanmu Yunchong was already in a daze. How could he call out? Lu Ming pulled the trigger a few more times before Duanmu Yunchong fell heavily to the ground. His entire body was convulsing. White foam and blood were mixed in his mouth and kept flowing out. His skin and flesh were split open, and more than a dozen bones were broken. Of course, this was the result of Lu Ming deliberately controlling his strength. Otherwise, he would have been whipped to death with one shot. Lu Ming stepped on Duanmu Yunchong's body and looked down at him. Duanmu Yun only regained his senses after rushing for a long time. He was scared out of his wits when he saw Lu Ming in front of him. Like a young girl who had been defiled, he shrunk his body and shrieked, "Don't hit me." As he shouted, snot and tears flowed down his face. He was really scared of being slapped. When the spear hit his body, the pain was simply soul deep. "Didn't you want me to suffer 10 times worse than Liu Hui? What? Where did the awe-inspiring presence from before go?" Lu Chang looked at Duanmu Yunchong and said indifferently, No, I won't dare to do it again. Just take it as I'm farting." Duanmu Yunchong shouted. Ha ha ha. Duanmu Yunchong's appearance made everyone burst into laughter. The Duanmu family's disciple's face was extremely dark. This was too embarrassing. "Duanmu Yunchong, hurry up and admit defeat." Someone from the Duanmu family shouted. "I admit defeat. Yes, I admit defeat, I admit defeat." Duanmu Yunchong shouted. It inevitably caused another round of laughter. "Lu Ming, Duanmu Yunchong has already admitted defeat. Why don't you move your foot away?" Someone from the Duanmu family called out. "Oh, good." Lu Ming smiled, moved his leg, and suddenly kicked. Duanmu Yunchong let out a blood-curdling screech as his body was sent flying dozens of meters away. He rolled dozens of times on the fighting ring before coming to a stop. "Lu Ming, what are you doing? Duanmu Yunchong has already admitted defeat, yet you still attacked. You have already broken the rules. We must capture you and punish you according to the sect's rules." A Silivera rank disciple of the Duanmu family roared. "Foul! You must have misunderstood. Just now, it was Duanmu Yunchong who was blocking my feet. When I lifted my foot, he was sent flying. It's all his fault. Why did he lie by my feet for no reason?" Lu Ming said indifferently. "You! Lu Ming, you!" The disciple of the Duanmu family trembled in anger. He felt as if he was suffocating and almost spat out blood. Previously, Duanmu Yunchong had treated Liu Hui in the same way. Now, Lu Ming had used it all on Duanmu Yunchong. It was really difficult for them to refute him. "Haha, Lu Ming, you're really too much. You're not even careful when you walk. You must be more careful next time." Ahaha. The Vermilion Bird Hall principal stroked his beard and laughed heartily. The disciples from the other halls were speechless when they saw the Vermilion Bird Hall chief laughing. "Wasn't your carefreeness too obvious? This battle, Lu Mingsheng." The Silivera-robed elder announced on the fighting ring. "Mighty senior brother Lu. Junior brother Lu is invincible." At this moment, the Vermilion Bird Hall disciples were so excited that they were trembling. They could not hold it in any longer and started screaming madly. It felt good, too good. It was like drinking a glass of cold beer in the middle of the summer. It felt so good that it went straight to the bone. Previously, Duanmu Yunchong had been so arrogant. But now, he was like a dead dog. It was simply too satisfying. In particular, Pang Shuo, Hua Kai, Feng Wu, and the others were flushed with excitement. At this moment, the people from the White Tiger Hall had already carried Duanmu Yunchong away. Lu Ming. Just as Lu Ming was about to turn and leave, a deafening roar rang out from the White Tiger Hall. Lu Ming turned around and saw a young man in a fiery red robe looking at him with a cold expression. "Duanmu Yunyang, that's Duanmu Yunyang. He was the newcomer king 3 years ago. What is he doing?" Someone exclaimed. "Duanmu Yunyang? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Information about Duanmu Yunyang appeared in his mind. Duanmu Yunyang, the new disciple king 3 years ago, was now ranked second on the bronze ranking. Unfortunately, he was being suppressed by Zhong Muyun, who was in the same batch as him. It was difficult for him to get first place. Some people said that Zhong Muyun was the true king in that episode. Duanmu Yunyang had only won the title because of the number of members in the Duanmu family. Why? Is there anything I can help you with? Lu Ming replied indifferently. Lu Ming, you're really bold. Perhaps you don't know how big of a mistake you've made. Lu Ming, you better pray that you don't meet me later on. Otherwise, I'll make you lose very badly. It's very ugly. Duanmu Yunyang coldly said. He especially emphasized the words very ugly. The disciples of the Black Tortoise, Azure Dragon, and Vermilion Bird Halls were all shocked. Especially the Vermilion Bird Hall disciples, their faces were even uglier. Duanmu Yunyang had his eyes on Lu Ming. Although Duanmu Yunyang was being suppressed by Zhong Muyun, it was undeniable that his combat strength was extremely powerful. He was almost invincible among his peers. There were even rumors that Duanmu Yunyang had once defeated a first-grade great martial master. This was crossing a major realm, not a small level. The strength of his battle prowess could be said to be terrifying. No one would think that Lu Ming was Duanmu Yunyang's match. Perhaps it would only be possible after a year or two. But now, it was impossible. Mu Lan, Feng Wu, and Hua Kai were all worried. Pang She was the only one who was waving his arms and shouting that he believed in Lu Ming. Oh, really? I wish I could meet you. I want to see how you're going to make me lose so badly. Don't be like Duanmu Yunchong, who only knows how to clamor. Yes, Lu Ming replied indifferently and domineeringly. Everyone was shocked. Lu Ming wanted to challenge Duanmu Yunyang. Where did he get the guts to do so? In the Azure Dragon Hall area, a man and a woman stood side by side. Among them, the man was wearing a blue robe. He had a slender figure, black hair hanging down loosely, sword-like eyebrows, and eyes like stars. He was just casually standing there, but he had an extraordinary aura, like a king on patrol. He was Zhong Muyun, ranked first on the bronze rank. Next to him was an extremely beautiful woman. She was Zhua Yirong, who was ranked 7th on the bronze rank. Brother Muyun, what do you think of Lu Ming? Zhua Yirong asked. He's extremely talented and a dragon among men. However, he's still young and full of youthful vigor. In 2 years, he'll be a great opponent for me. Zhong Muyun smiled. It's rare for you to think so highly of me, big brother Muyun, but isn't it great to have a worthy opponent in life? Zhua Yirong asked, a little surprised. Yirong, you know me best. Zhong Muyun said with a smile. Chapter 116. Chapter 116, Newcomer King, Newcomer King. 5496903339. Lu Ming did not say much to Duanmu Yunyang. He turned around and walked down the fighting ring. Lu Ming, thank you. When Lu Ming returned to the Vermilion Bird Hall, Liu Hui cupped his fists and thanked him. You don't have to thank me. I'm not just standing up for you. I just can't stand the Duanmu family's attitude. Besides, the Duanmu family and I have a grudge against each other. Lu Ming said with a smile. Look. You don't like it. Liu Hui and the other Vermilion Bird Hall disciples were stunned. Just because of this reason, he went up and ruthlessly beat up Duanmu Yunchong? They felt that they could not figure out Lu Ming's thoughts. The challenge continued. The competition was very intense, and everyone was fighting with all their strength. It was already night time when all the challenges ended. Including Lu Ming, there were a total of 5 people who succeeded in the challenge, replacing 5 of the previous 30 people. At this time, the top 30 students from the various academies had all been born. Only 5 people from the Vermilion Bird Hall had made it into the top 30. The Onyx Tortoise Hall was just as miserable as the Vermilion Bird Hall, with only 5 people. The Azure Dragon Hall had 8 members, while the White Tiger Hall had Tuileries members. It was worth mentioning that among the 4 newcomers who had received a lot of attention this time, Feng Xinglia had already been eliminated. Lu Ming, on the other hand, had entered the top 30 as a dark horse. As for the other two, Ling Kong, the newcomer king from 2 years ago, and Duanmu Yunyang, the newcomer king from 3 years ago, they had naturally entered the top 30 with ease. Feng Lai is still too young. He's been in the sect for less than 2 years. It's normal for him to be eliminated. That's right. However, if Feng Lai doesn't break through to the martial grandmaster realm in a year or two, the battle of the bronze rank will be his. That's the normal speed. But what about Lu Ming? Everyone was chatting, but they all thought of a name, Lu Ming. Lu Ming had just entered the sect this year, but he had made it into the top 30. Lu Ming. He's abnormal and can't be calculated according to common sense. Everyone could only comfort themselves with this reason. Today's competition had ended, and it would continue on the second day. Lu Ming, Pang Shuo, and the rest returned to the dormitory. After a night of silence, they returned to the competition's location the next morning. Now, the top 30 will come up to draw lots. The host was still the Sai-Lever-robed elder from yesterday. The rules were the same as yesterday. The Sai-Lever-robed elders would randomly pick 15 people, and these 15 people would then pick the names of the other 15 people. This time, Lu Ming drew number 12. Number 12? It seems like I've finally met a strong opponent. Lu Ming's lips curved into a smile of anticipation. To be honest, he didn't even use his full strength in the previous battles. After the registration, Lu Ming walked towards his seat. Lu Ming, which number did you draw? Mu Lan asked impatiently as soon as she returned. Today, Mu Lan did not sit with her grandfather. Instead, she was squeezed together with Feng Wu, Pang Shuo, and the others. Naturally, their area was filled with the male Vermilion Bird Hall disciples. Number 12. Lu Ming smiled. Number 12. Azure Dragon Hall's Ji Yu Qing, Feng Wu, Hua Kai, and the others' expressions changed upon hearing this name. Lu Ming, remember, you just have to do your best. Even if you lose, it's worth it to gain something. Mu Lan heaved a sigh. Senior sister Mu Lan, from your tone, it sounds like I'm going to lose for sure. Lu Ming was somewhat speechless. What's wrong? Do you really think you can win against Ji Yu Qing? Mu Lan's beautiful eyes flickered as she stared at Lu Ming. Even if I can't win, can't you just cheer me on? Lu Ming did not answer her directly. Instead, he asked her a question and sat down. However, there was an inexplicable smile at the corner of his mouth. This guy. What kind of trump card is he keeping? Mu Lan glared at Lu Ming for a while, as if she wanted to see through his secret. The first match officially begins. Number 19, Pu Sikhong, versus number 15, Ling Kong. The Sai-Lever-robed elder announced. Following the Sai-Lever-robed elder's announcement, the crowd immediately burst into an uproar. Ling Kong has come out. He's actually going against Pu Sikhong. A battle between the strong. This match is going to be interesting. I don't think so. Ling Kong hasn't fought for half a year. No one knows how strong he is now. However, there's no doubt that Ling Kong has the chance to enter the top 10 this time. It might even be possible for him to enter the top 6. Yeah, the rookie king from 2 years ago is about to be crowned. 2 young figures stepped onto the fighting ring under everyone's gaze. Ling Kong was a bald young man of 17 or 18 years old. His muscles were bulging, and he was filled with explosive strength. He carried an iron rod on his back, and his eyes revealed a beast-like glint. This was Ling Kong, the newcomer king from 2 years ago, the peerless genius of the White Tiger Hall. However, he was not a member of the Duanmu family. Across from Ling Kong was a handsome young man named Pu Sikhong. He was ranked 19th on the bronze list and was definitely a master. However, Pu Sichong's expression was extremely grave. Pu Sikhong, I advise you to admit defeat. You are not my match, Ling Kong said with a grin. His words were arrogant, but in reality, no one felt that he was arrogant. They only felt that Ling Kong's words were natural because he had the strength to do so. Pu Sichong's eyes flashed, and he said with determination, Ling Kong, if you want me to admit defeat, let's see if you have the ability to do so. Oh, since you're so insistent on fighting, then you should be prepared to get injured. Sometimes, I can't control myself. Ling Kong grinned, revealing a sinister smile. Then take this. Bang! As soon as Ling Kong finished speaking, a vicious light appeared in his eyes. Like a beast, he quickly pounced towards Pu Sai. Kai Kai! The sharp claw light covered Pu Sicheng's body. Pu Sikhong unsheathed his long sword, and the sword chi shot up to the sky. Boom! Boom! The claw radiance in the air collided with Pu Sicheng's sword chi and both dissipated. You have some skills, but that's all. Let's end this. A cold voice rang out in the air, and a baleful aura spread out from his body. Like a beast in human form, he pulled out the metal rod on his back and smashed it at Pu Sikhong. This strike was earth-shattering and had an imposing aura. Pu Sikhong exploded with all his strength, but he still couldn't block it. He was sent flying dozens of meters, his body trembling, and he spat out blood. He was defeated in 2 moves. In fact, he was defeated in 1 move. The difference between Pu Sicheng's strength and Ling Kong's was too great. Ling Kong is too powerful. He'll definitely be able to get into the top 10. This time, there will definitely be some changes in the top 10. On the grandstand, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. This Ling Kong was indeed powerful. He could not tell how strong he was. This is more interesting. Then, a trace of fighting spirit flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. Ling Kong wins. Next round, number 17 versus number 2. The Silver-robed elder announced. Chapter 117. Chapter 117. Chapter 117 Flame Cage. 54969039. Wasn't number 2 Duanmu Yunyang? Duanmu Yunyang's opponent was number 17, Du He. His strength was even stronger than Pu Sicheng's. However, the difference between him and Duanmu Yunyang was too great. 1 blade. With just 1 blade, Du He had been defeated. He had been completely defeated. He did not even have the power to fight back. Duanmu Yunyang's blade was extremely terrifying. It seemed as if it could split the heavens and earth. No one knew how much of Duanmu Yunyang's strength he had used in this attack. However, there was no doubt that it was extremely terrifying. The competition continued. It was even more intense than before. Those who could enter the top 30 were all extremely strong. Some 2 people with similar strength clashed, and the battle was extremely fierce. There was even a battle that took nearly 1,000 moves before the victor was decided. But there were also some battles that were completely one-sided. For example, Zhong Muyun had casually dealt with his opponent with a single palm. Bu Xingkai, who was ranked 3rd on the bronze list, and Duan Gang, who was ranked 4th, had also defeated their opponents with 1 move. What caught Lu Ming's attention was Bu Xingkai, as he was also a spear user. Moreover, he was a genius from the White Tiger Hall. Although the mystical sword sect was known as the Sword Sect, and there were many who used swords, there were also many who used other weapons. That was why there were so many first places. For example, Zhong Muyun was known as the number 1 sword among the bronze disciples. Duanmu Yunyang was known as the first blade. Bu Xingkai was called the first spear. Number 51, Lu Ming, versus number 12, Jiyu Qing. The Silver-robed elder announced. Jiyu Qing, Lu Ming's opponent this time is Jiyu Qing. It seems that this is the end for Lu Ming. However, as a new disciple, it's already amazing that he can reach this stage. If Lu Ming is defeated, he will definitely be defeated. But how many moves can Lu Ming take from Jiyu Qing? A few moves. In my opinion, 10 moves shouldn't be a problem. It's hard to say. I'm guessing it'll be within 10 moves. Lu Ming ignored the discussions around him. He stood up and walked towards the fighting ring. Senior brother Lu Ming, I believe in you. You will definitely win. Pang Shi shouted. He had blind trust in Lu Ming. Lu Ming turned to Pang Shi and smiled. Big Rock, with your words, I'm sure I'll win. After saying that, he laughed and walked forward. Where does this guy's confidence come from? Mulan pouted. This guy has always been overconfident. Feng Wu said. Although they said that, there was a flash of anticipation in the depths of their eyes. They were also looking forward to Lu Ming breaking their understanding again. When Lu Ming stepped onto the fighting ring, Ji Yuqing also stepped onto the fighting ring. The two of them stood opposite each other. Lu Ming could not help but size Ji Yuqing up. Ji Yuqing was dressed in a long purple robe and carried a long sword on his back. He had an ordinary appearance, but there was a burning aura emanating from his body. Junior brother Lu Ming, although you're ranked at the bottom, I won't show any mercy to any opponent. You have to be careful. Ji Yuqing cupped his fists and was very polite. Senior brother Ji Yu, feel free to use all your strength. If I can't withstand it and get injured, it's my fault for not being good enough. Lu Ming said. All right, since that's the case, take this. Starfire Prairie Fire. Ji Yuqing unsheathed the long sword on his back. With a flick of his wrist, the long sword burst out with hundreds of sword chi. Each sword chi was fiery red and filled with a scorching intent, sealing off the space where Lu Ming was. It's here. It's Ji Yuqing's famous martial art, Starfire Prairie Sword Art. Black-grade low-level martial arts technique, Starfire Prairie Fire. Sword chi is like a prairie fire, covering an extremely large area, and it's almost impossible to avoid it with movement techniques. Once you can't avoid it, you'll have to face wave after wave of continuous attacks, without end. I heard that Ji Yuqing specializes in one type of martial arts technique. He has already cultivated it to an astonishing 4th stage and has reached the point of perfection. Lu Ming, how many moves can you take? The disciples who were watching the battle stared at the fighting ring without blinking. The genius ranked 12th is indeed powerful. A black-grade low-level martial arts technique has actually been cultivated to the 4th stage. Ji Yuqing's body is definitely not weak either, at least reaching complete grade 1. Otherwise, he would not be able to strike so quickly. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He did not stop and swept the long spear horizontally. LNU. The crescent-shaped spear radiance flashed and produced a powerful force that destroyed the surrounding sword chi. However, a single spark could set a prairie on fire. Once the sword chi was extinguished, even more sword chi emerged and enveloped Lu Ming. Since I can't destroy it, I'll use a powerful force to break this sword technique. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He leaped up and pulled his long spear from the bottom to the top. Wherever the long spear passed, the sword chi was destroyed, revealing an empty area. Landslide. Then, Lu Ming executed the mountain crash from above. At the same time, the essential chi in his body gushed into the long spear wildly. The long spear trembled and was filled with an immense force. Lu Ming's cultivation was at the peak of the 8th grade master realm. In addition, his essential chi was 3 times stronger and more condensed than other essential chi. In addition, his physical body was at the 2nd stage lower tier. Although Lu Ming did not unleash his full power, his strength was still extremely shocking. Even if it was a small hill, Lu Ming would have destroyed it with this shot. Boom! The long spear smashed down, and the sword chi was swept away. The violent chi smashed onto Ji Yuqing's sword, causing his body to shake violently, and he was forced to take more than 10 steps back. Sigh sigh. Gasps could be heard all around. Everyone looked at this scene in shock. Lu Ming had actually broken Ji Yuqing's Starfire Prairie Sword technique with one shot. The method was brutal and direct, but it was also the most effective. Lu Ming is too powerful. How does he have such great power? Could it be that Lu Ming can win? Isn't this too unbelievable? The disciples of the 4 halls found it hard to remain calm. At this moment, Ji Yuqing's face was extremely serious, and his eyes were filled with surprise. Junior brother Lu Ming, your talent is really beyond my expectations. However, it's not that easy to defeat me. I can only use that move. I was planning to save it for the top 10, but it's not a waste to use it on you. Flame Cage. Ji Yuqing shouted, and his body suddenly shot up into the sky. Layers of red flames suddenly appeared on his body, as if his whole body was suddenly burning. Then, the flames swept toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body dodged continuously to avoid the flames. However, as soon as the flames landed on the ground, they started to burn. In an instant, Lu Ming's surroundings turned into a sea of fire. Junior brother Lu Ming, this is my secret skill, Flame Cage. If you can break this move, I'll admit defeat. Ji Yuqing's voice sounded. Secret art, What a wondrous secret art. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. A secret skill was completely different from a martial skill. There was no difference in levels. However, each secret skill was extremely wondrous and difficult to cultivate. It also required some special conditions to successfully cultivate. Once it was used, it could greatly increase the strength of the martial artist. However, there were always losses. Secret skills also had various restrictions. For example, once some secret skills were used, the martial artist would fall into a weak state and be at the mercy of others. Ji Yuqing's secret skill was to burn his genuine qi as fuel, turning it into a flame cage. Unfortunately, how can flames stop me? Lu Ming's lips curled into a confident smile. Chapter 118. Chapter 118, The Reward for First Place. 54969039. Immediately, Lu Ming's long spear started to wave rapidly. The long spear was brandished and the wind was strong. The fire-patterned spear in Lu Ming's hands seemed to have turned into a fire dragon. And NBSB, hoo-hoo. Then, a shocking scene appeared. The surrounding flames rose and fell with the movement of Lu Ming's long spear. In the end, they were driven by the long spear and turned into a huge fire dragon, dancing around Lu Ming. Lu Ming stood in the sea of fire with fire dragons dancing around him. He was like a god of fire who had descended to the world. Go! In the end, Lu Ming thrust his spear at the sky. A fire dragon soared into the sky, spiraling up and soaring into the clouds. After reaching a height of 100 meters, the fire dragon slowly dissipated and turned into energy, returning to the heaven and earth. On the fighting ring, where Lu Ming stood, there was no longer any flame. The flame cage was broken. Ji Yuqing was dumbfounded. He only reacted after a while and forced a smile. Junior brother Lu Ming is a genius, I can't compare to him. Thank you for showing mercy, junior brother Lu Ming. I admit defeat. If Lu Ming had aimed his spear at him just now, he would have been seriously injured, if not dead, given the weakened state he was in after casting the secret skill. I was lucky, Lu Ming said with a smile. I look forward to junior brother Lu Ming entering the top 10. Ji Yuqing cupped his fists and left the fighting ring. He won. Lu Ming had won again. The disciples of the four halls were already too weak to exclaim. They could only feel their lips trembling. In particular, those who had repeatedly thought that Lu Ming was going to stop and lose felt their faces burning hot as if they had been slapped dozens of times. In the area of the White Tiger Hall, Lu Yarrow and Lu Yunxiong's faces were so dark that they looked like they were about to drip water. In the depths of their eyes, there was even a flash of fear. Lu Ming's talent and speed of improvement had already made them a little frightened. No, he's still far from Duan Mulin's level. Lu Yarrow clenched her fists tightly as she warned herself over and over again. It seemed that this was the only way she could feel better. Lu Ming wins. The Sai Lever-robed elder announced on the fighting ring. Naturally, the entire arena was in an uproar. Lu Ming smiled, walked down the Colosseum, and returned to his seat. How is it? Senior Sister Mulan, I've told you that you should believe me. You're the one who recommended me to come here. If you believe me, it means that you believe in your own judgment. Lu Ming said to Mulan triumphantly when they returned to their seats. You brat. It's still early. You can come and show off after you enter the top 10. At the sight of Lu Ming's smug look, Mulan gritted her teeth in anger. Of course, there was a flash of admiration in the depths of her eyes. Enter the top 10? What's the reward? Lu Ming asked. Reward? What kind of reward do you want? Mulan smiled. Senior Sister Mulan, I'll give you whatever reward I want. Will you be satisfied with it? Lu Ming said with a faint smile. Mulan pouted her lips and rolled her eyes. She said, Lu Ming, you can satisfy any condition you want. Sure, unless you can come in first in this competition. First place? Senior Sister Mulan, didn't you say that? Lu Ming stared at Mulan with a faint smile. Looking at Lu Ming's eyes, Mulan's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Lu Ming can still get first place? Then, she shook her head. First place? It was impossible. The abilities of the top few students were terrifying. She was very clear that it was impossible for Lu Ming to get first place. Thinking of this, he felt at ease and smiled. All right, then it's a deal. First place. The others had similar thoughts as Mulan. With Lu Ming's combat strength, it was very possible for him to enter the top 10. However, it was impossible for him to be in the first place. The competition continued, and it didn't take long for the rest of the competition to end. However, the top 15 had not been decided yet. Because there was still a challenge. This time, the elders would choose the one they thought was the strongest to fill in the 16th place. After that, they would choose 5 people to challenge. The winner would enter the top 16. Not long after, the spots were selected, and the challenge began. This time, no one challenged Lu Ming as he had displayed too powerful an ability. It was already evening when all the challenges ended. As for the top 16, they had already been announced. The White Tiger Hall was still in the lead, occupying 7 spots. The Azure Dragon Hall had 4, the Vermilion Bird Hall had 3, and the Onyx Tortoise Hall had it the worst with only 2 in the top 16. As expected, Ji Yuqing of the Azure Dragon Hall had fought his way back to the top 16, proving his strength. The top 10 geniuses all made it into the top 16. Today's competition had ended. The next morning, the competition continued. This time, it was still decided by drawing lots. This time, after the lots were drawn, the Silivra-robed elder announced the name list for the duel. Among them, the most eye-catching one was Lu Ming against Ling Kong. That's right, it was a battle between the 2 newcomer kings. For example, the other powerhouses who were ranked higher didn't fight against each other. Naturally, the battle between Lu Ming and Ling Kong attracted a lot of attention. The entire audience was discussing the battle between Lu Ming and Ling Kong. They were all guessing who would win. Lu Ming's performance was too amazing. They did not dare to say that they would definitely win in the air. Under everyone's anticipation, the match began. Duanmu Yunyang was the first to go up, and his opponent was actually Ji Yuqing. This was a one-sided battle. Ji Yuqing had used all of his strength to cast the blazing cage, but it had been split apart by Duanmu Yunyang's blade. Duanmu Yunyang had won with an overwhelming force. Then, Zhong Muyun, Bu Xingkai, Duan Gang, and the others also went up one by one. They won without any suspense. On the other hand, Cheng Feichen had only managed to defeat his opponent after a bitter battle. Finally, it was Lu Ming and Ling Kong's turn in the 7th round. Chapter 119. Chapter 119. Chapter 119 Secret Skill, Mad Beast Technique. 5496903339. Finally, it was Lu Ming and Ling Kong's turn in the 7th round. The atmosphere of the entire place was ignited. In the area of the White Tiger Hall. Ling Kong, don't hold back when dealing with Lu Ming. It's best if you can cripple him, Duanmu Yunyang coldly spoke. Duanmu Yunyang, are you giving me orders? I'm telling you, I, Ling Kong, am not your Duanmu family's dog. Don't talk to me with that tone. Ling Kong grinned, his face filled with arrogance. Ling Kong, you. What did that mean? Lu Ming is the White Tiger Hall's enemy. Another youth from the Duanmu family said with an ugly expression. He is the enemy of the Duanmu family, not mine. However, I will give it my all. It's not because of the Duanmu family, but because Lu Ming is a good opponent. Ling Kong pouted and continued. With that, his figure flashed in the air and he rushed towards the fighting ring. This Ling Kong, relying on the grandfather of a gold-robed elder, is simply unruly. He's a scourge. A young man from the Duanmu family said. Don't worry, he'll have to submit to us sooner or later. Duanmu Yunyang sneered. On the fighting ring, Lu Ming and Ling Kong stood opposite each other. Lu Ming, good luck. Senior brother Lu Ming is invincible. The Vermilion Bird Hall disciples shouted and cheered for Lu Ming. Ling Kong, invincible, go Ling Kong. Senior brother Ling Kong beat Lu Ming up. He will definitely win. The disciples of the White Tiger Hall were not to be outdone, and they also shouted. After that, the disciples from both sides began to glower at each other. The competition had not even started, but the disciples from both courtyards were already at daggers drawn. Lu Ming, I know you're still hiding your strength. Your blood has never erupted before. Show me all your strength. I won't show you any mercy. He looked at Lu Ming from above, his eyes filled with wildness. I can't ask for more. Lu Ming smiled. Good, haha. Ling Kong laughed. The two of them looked at each other. Boom. Boom. Suddenly, the two of them moved at the same time. The fighting ring rumbled and the two figures rushed at each other. Demonic wind staff technique mountain split. Fire gun art mountain crash. The iron rod in the air and Lu Ming's long spear collided heavily. Clang. As if two ancient demons had collided, an earth-shaking boom was heard. At the point where the spear and the iron rod met, two rays of light, one red and one yellow, exploded violently, forming a huge storm that swept in all directions. The surrounding grandstands, even if they were a few hundred meters away, still felt like a strong wind was blowing, and people were almost blown away. Wasn't he too strong? What kind of power was this? Is this still the strength of a master realm? Some of the disciples were horrified. It was just a single move, but the power was terrifying. In the fighting ring, the two exchanged a blow and both retreated 7 or 8 steps. What a powerful force. Ling Kong's body is even stronger than mine. It has already reached the 2nd grade upper tier, and his profound level martial skill has also reached the peak of the 4th stage, no weaker than mine. It seems that I can't win against him with only 60% of my strength. Lu Ming's mind was racing. The strength of Lu Ming's essential chi far exceeded that of an average peak 9th grade master. In the previous confrontation, he had only used 60% of it at most. All right, again. It roared in the air and its muscles squirmed. Like pieces of iron, it rushed toward Lu Ming at high speed. Then 70%. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He stepped on the ground with the tip of his foot and his body dashed out like a gust of wind. Clang. There was another violent explosion. This time, he retreated in the air, but Lu Ming only swayed a little. Lu Ming has the upper hand. Is he going to win? It's not that easy. Just wait and see. Boom. After retreating in the air, he charged at Lu Ming like a wild beast that had gone mad. Clang. Clang. The two of them continued to exchange blows. Ling Kong was forced back each time, but he would charge forward again in the next moment. In an instant, the two of them had exchanged more than a dozen moves. Everyone present held their breath and watched without blinking. Some of the younger ones were even more excited. It was too exciting and violent. The two of them directly met force with force. It was simple and violent, but it was the most shocking. In the area of the 4 courtyards, there were some people who had extremely grave expressions. For example, Su Song who was ranked 8th, Dong Ce who was ranked 9th, and Lei Dong who was ranked 10th. This was because the strength that the two of them had displayed was already close to their own. Clang. With another move, he was forced to retreat 7 or 8 steps. This time, he did not continue to attack. Haha, awesome, awesome, this is too awesome. Lu Ming, you're not like those sissies who wield an embroidered sword and learn some slimy body techniques. You're not like a man at all. I must treat you to a drink after this competition. Ling Kong laughed. All right, I'll be waiting for your wine. Lu Ming smiled, his eyes burning with fighting spirit. Such a direct collision also made Lu Ming's blood boil. However, Lu Ming, if this is all you have, I'll be the winner of this round. Ling Kong said as he licked his lips. Boom. Soon after, Ling Kong's body flashed with a blood-red light as his bloodline exploded. His bloodline was a 6th level bloodline. In the mystical sword sect, most of the top geniuses had a 5th grade bloodline. Only an extremely small number of people had bloodlines of the 6th rank. It was as fierce as the wind, as high as the sky. There was not a single person with a rank 6 bloodline in this batch of newcomers. Before Lu Ming rose to power, many people said that this year's batch was the weakest in recent years. Of course, everyone who said that now kept their mouths shut. Pai Li Pa La. At the same time as Ling Kong's blood vessels burst out, his body actually let out a sound like beans being fried. Soon after, Ling Kong's muscles wriggled, his bones shifted, and he actually began to swell. In just a few breaths' time, Ling Kong's body had grown several times in size. He was like a giant ape, and a violent and fiendish aura emanated from him. Mad Beast Technique, Secret Technique, Mad Beast Technique. Ling Kong actually mastered the Mad Beast Technique. With Ling Kong's strength and the Mad Beast Technique, how terrifying would he be? This is the strength of the top 5. A series of exclamations came from the stands. It's actually the Mad Beast Technique. Lu Ming's gaze flickered. This was something that Hua Kai had not recorded. The Mad Beast Technique was a secret technique that allowed one to transform into a beast and increase one's strength by a large margin. However, its weakness was that it didn't last long and placed a huge burden on the body. After using it, the body would be weak for a period of time. Receive my attack. He roared in the air and charged at Lu Ming like a giant ape. His speed was much faster than before. The eruption of his bloodline and the Mad Beast Technique had more than doubled Ling Kong's combat strength. Boom! The thick iron rod smashed down on Lu Ming. The metal cudgel smashed through the air, producing a rumbling sound. It was extremely terrifying. In that case, I'll use 100% of my cultivation. Lu Ming's eyes flashed and the essential qi in his body suddenly burst out. Boom! At this moment, Lu Ming's body exploded with a terrifying aura. Streams of extremely powerful essential qi wrapped around him. Buzz! 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 At this moment, Zhong Muyun, Duanmu Yunyang, Biyu Xingkai, and Duan Gang all stood up from their seats. Chapter 120. Chapter 120, Entering the Top 10. 5496903339, Zhong Muyun, Duanmu Yunyang, Biyu Xingkai, and Duan Gang stood up at the same time. The 3 people behind them looked especially serious. Boom! Lu Ming's long spear swept out and once again collided with the iron rod in the air. The strong qi spread out and stirred up gusts of strong wind. Some of the disciples at the front of the stands with slightly weaker cultivation were directly swept up by the strong wind. If it were not for the help of the disciples with higher cultivation, they would have been blown away. It was too terrifying. This attack had already surpassed the realm of martial masters and reached the realm of great martial masters. After a loud noise, the 2 figures separated at the same time and slid back more than 10 meters. This power is really strong. Let's continue. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat and he continued to rush forward. Again, he roared in the air and pounced at Lu Ming again. Clang! The 2 of them collided again. The 2 of them separated after one strike and then clashed again. Clang! Clang! On the fighting stage, it was as if 2 ancient gods were bombarding each other. The terrifying collision sounds were deafening, and those with lower cultivation had to use their martial arts to resist. It's too terrifying. Is this the strength of 2 new generation kings? Only the top 5 of the bronze rank can have such combat strength, right? That's right. Those who are ranked 5th on the bronze list are definitely not this powerful. The most terrifying one is still Lu Ming. He just joined this year. It's really shocking. I wonder if Lu Ming can break senior brother Feng Wuji's record. Back then, senior brother Feng Wuji managed to get to the 5th place as a newbie in his first year. Just wait and see. The disciples of the 4 courtyards were shocked by Lu Ming's combat strength. Clang! Clang! The explosions continued, and after exchanging hundreds of moves, the 2 of them separated and stood opposite each other. Lu Ming, I've lost. Ling Kong sighed. Suddenly, his body trembled and he fell to the ground, panting heavily. Whether it was the Mad Beast Technique or the bloodline explosion, they couldn't be maintained for too long. At this moment, the time was up. As Ling Kong admitted defeat, the crowd boiled over, especially the Vermilion Bird Hall disciples who were shouting Lu Ming's name. Lu Ming's victory basically meant that he had entered the top 10. This time, the Vermilion Bird Hall might have 2 people in the top 10, which was already very good. They would definitely not be at the bottom. In the past 7 to 8 years, the Vermilion Bird Hall had always been at the bottom. Lu Ming, if there's a chance in the future, let's fight again, Ling Kong said. All right. Lu Ming nodded. Ha ha ha. Ling Kong laughed as he walked down the fighting ring and went back to his normal self. He might have another match next. Lu Ming came down from the fighting ring. After that, another match continued. It didn't take long for the competition to end. After the competition ended, it was the elders' turn to have a headache. This time, the elders were going to choose 2 of the strongest to make up for the top 10. Then, from the remaining 6 people, 3 people would be chosen as challengers to challenge the top 10 experts. If they could win, they would replace them. After an intense discussion, the candidate was finally chosen. Without a doubt, Ling Kong's combat strength was obvious to all. He was directly placed in the top 10 as one of the first 2 places. Then, the other 3 began to issue challenges. Similarly, no one had challenged Lu Ming. When the challenge ended, this year's top 10 was finally born. This year's top 10 was not much different from the previous bronze list. The previous top 10 on the bronze list were: First place, Zhong Muyun, Azure Dragon Hall. In second place was Duanmu Yunyang from the White Tiger Hall. Third place, Bu Xingkai from the White Tiger Hall. Fourth place, Duan Gang, Onyx Tortoise Hall. Fifth place, Duanmu Chen, White Tiger Hall. Sixth place, Cheng Feiqing, Vermilion Bird Hall. Seventh place, Zhua Yirong, Azure Dragon Hall. Eighth place, Su Song, Black Tortoise Region. Ninth place, Dong Ce, Azure Dragon Court. 10th place, Lei Yidong, White Tiger Hall. Among them, there were 4 from the White Tiger Hall. 3 of them were in the top 5, and they were extremely powerful. The Azure Dragon Hall had 3, the Onyx Tortoise Hall had 2, and the Vermilion Bird Hall had 1. This time, there was a slight change. Ling Kong and Lu Ming had made it into the top 10. Su Song, who was originally in 8th place, and Lei Yidong, who was in 10th place, were not destined to be in the top 10. In this way, the White Tiger Hall still had 4 people, the Azure Dragon Hall had 3, the Onyx Tortoise Hall had the worst, with only Duangang, and the Vermilion Bird Hall had 2. The top 10 would have to fight against each other. In other words, each of them would have to compete with the other 9. In the end, they would be ranked according to the number of victories they won. Today's competition had come to an end. The battles between the top 10 would be held tomorrow. Lu Ming, it's already very good that you can achieve this result. Don't feel pressured in tomorrow's competition. Just perform as you normally would. Mu Lan said. However, she was smiling so much that her eyes were almost squinting. That won't do. I'm going to get first place. I'm still waiting for your reward, senior sister Mu Lan. Lu Ming said half-jokingly. All right, then you have to work hard. Mu Lan's face was slightly red. She cast a glance at Lu Ming, immediately causing Hua Kai, Pang Shu, and the rest to stare at him. Then, Mu Lan left the place with light steps. Lu Ming, Pang Shu, and Hua Kai also walked back together. After returning to the dormitory, Lu Ming entered the Supreme Shrine and started cultivating the fire gun controlling art. Today's battle with Ling Kong could be said to be extremely satisfying. Other than the last move of the fire gun technique, the explosion of his bloodline, and the fire force, he had already used all his strength. He had 100% of his cultivation, a second-grade lower-tier body, and the fire gun controlling art. Lu Ming had benefited a lot from this battle. He felt that the fire gun art was not far from a breakthrough. In the midst of the wonderful chanting, Lu Ming was quietly comprehending the firearms control art. The fire-patterned spear in his hand started to dance unconsciously. The strong wind whistled and the long spear broke through the air. Time passed by unknowingly. 3 hours had passed when Lu Ming stopped. I've finally reached the 5th level of the fire gun art, the perfection level. There was a flash in Lu Ming's eyes. The fire gun technique had been stuck at the peak of the 4th level for a long time. Finally, after the battle with Ling Kong, he had a breakthrough. Zhong Muyun, Duanmu Yunyang, how strong are you? Lu Ming's eyes were filled with anticipation. After that, Lu Ming sat cross-legged and circulated the True War Dragon technique to cultivate. At this moment, the White Tiger Hall's headmaster was seated in a resplendent hall. Below him were Duanmu Yunyang, Bu Xingkai, and Duanmu Chen. I didn't expect Lu Ming to have reached such a terrifying level. You must be careful when you meet him tomorrow. The headmaster of the White Tiger Hall warned. Don't worry, Dean. Lu Ming is no match for me. I'll definitely teach him an unforgettable lesson tomorrow. I'll let him know who's the one with the bronze first spear. Bu Shinkai said confidently. Although Lu Ming is quite powerful, he's not a threat to me at all. My goal is to defeat Zhong Muyun and take the first place. Duanmu Yunyang said with bright eyes. All right, Yunyang. If you can defeat Zhong Muyun this time, the family will definitely reward you handsomely. The White Tiger Academy president said. Chapter 121. Chapter 121. Chapter 121 Consecutive Battles. 5496903339. Somewhere in the Onyx Tortoise Hall, a vigorous voice rang out. Duan Gang, you're the only one left in the Onyx Tortoise Hall this time. You must enter the top 3 this time, or else my Onyx Tortoise Hall will be at the bottom. Don't worry, Dean. Duan Gang will definitely do his best. Zhong Muyun and Zhou Yirong stood side by side in a courtyard of the Azure Dragon Hall. Big brother Mu Yun, this time, Duanmu Yunyang will definitely want to obtain the first place. Are you confident? Zhou Yirong asked. In another year, Lu Ming can be my opponent. No one else. Zhong Muyun let out a long sigh. His sigh seemed a little lonely, but it also showed his strong self-confidence. This night was destined to be a sleepless one. Countless people were looking forward to tomorrow's battle. At first, everyone thought that there were 2 main points to watch in this competition. The first was to see which rank he could get in the air. Second, who would emerge as the champion in the battle between Duanmu Yunyang and Zhong Muyun? After all, Duanmu Yunyang was the newcomer king of that generation. However, he was suppressed by another person. He wanted to defeat Zhong Muyun at all times. But now, there was one more thing to watch. How high would Lu Ming, the newcomer king, rank this year? Therefore, it was even more exciting. Under everyone's anticipation, the night passed. The sky had just turned bright when Feng Wu and Mu Lan arrived at Lu Ming's dormitory. After that, everyone had their breakfast and walked towards the competition ground together. When they arrived, they were shocked. There was already a sea of people here, and the number of people was much more than yesterday. The Silivera disciples who did not come yesterday put down their work and rushed over. In addition, some Silivera-robed elders had also arrived. The 10 people today were all true geniuses. They weren't the kind of old disciples who were stuck at the peak of the 9th grade master realm and couldn't break through. They were all young and were just suppressing their own cultivation. As long as they broke through to the great martial master realm, they would be considered geniuses among the great martial masters. They could even fight above their level. In the future, they might be able to enter the Silivera ranking. Therefore, Silivera disciples also attached great importance to them. Not long after, the deans of the 4 schools and the sect masters all arrived. Clang, clang. With the 9 melodious bell chimes, the exciting battle between the top 10 had just begun. All right, the battles of the top 10 will begin now. This battle will be divided into 9 rounds. The first match of the first round, Ling Kong vs Duanmu Chen. On the fighting ring, a Silivera-robed elder announced the verdict. Everyone's spirits were suddenly lifted. They didn't expect that the first round would be such a big show. Duanmu Chen, who was ranked 5th on the bronze ranking list, was going to be the winner. On the platform, the 2 of them stood facing each other. Duanmu Chen was a rare genius of the Duanmu family. His sword technique was unparalleled, second only to Zhong Muyun on the bronze ranking. Duanmu Chen, you're no match for me. Ling Kong was still confident, wild, and filled with fiendish qi. Not necessarily. Duanmu Chen said coldly. Buzz. Buzz. The 2 of them moved at the same time. Duanmu Chen's sword qi was incomparably sharp. It tore through the air and the sword broke through the firmament. It was extremely powerful. Unfortunately, he encountered Ling Kong. Ling Kong didn't care what kind of sword qi it was. He smashed it with his iron rod. When Ling Kong unleashed his Mad Beast technique, Duanmu Chen was completely outmatched and was completely suppressed by Ling Kong's violent attacks. This round, Ling Kong won. Ling Kong won, and Duanmu Chen is no match for him. Lu Ming, who's even more powerful, is definitely stronger than Duanmu Chen. Indeed, Lu Ming and Ling Kong are both capable of making it to the top 5. The victory in the air inevitably reminded people of Lu Ming. The second match, Zhong Muyun vs Dong Ce. The judge announced the start of the second round. There was no suspense in this match. Dong Ce had admitted defeat directly before he even made a move. It was unwise to attack when he knew he was no match for them. There was more than one battle today. There were still many more to come. If he used up too much energy, it would be disadvantageous for the later battles. He might as well admit defeat. The third round, Lu Ming vs Cheng Fei. It's actually Cheng Feicheng? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. The Vermilion Bird Hall only had the two of them in the top 10. He did not expect them to face each other in the first round. The two of them ascended the fighting ring from the same area. Cheng Feicheng, around 17 or 18 years old, was dressed in a red dress and looked extremely beautiful. There were only 2 women in the top 10. Cheng Feicheng and Zhua Yirong were both famous beauties in the mystical sword sect, and were known as the sect's top 10 beauties. At this moment, Cheng Feiyan's beautiful eyes were bright. She looked at Lu Ming. Junior brother Lu Ming, I didn't expect that we would meet in the first round. This is such a coincidence. What a coincidence. Senior sister, please enlighten me, Lu Ming smiled. It's fine if you want to teach me, but how can I be your opponent? I admit defeat for this round. Cheng Feicheng's beautiful eyes flickered as he smiled. Ah! Admit defeat. Lu Ming was a little stunned. That's right, junior brother Lu Ming. You're the hope of the Vermilion Bird Hall. We're counting on you this time. Cheng Feicheng's eyes narrowed as he smiled and walked down the fighting ring. Then, Lu Ming's first round ended easily. The disciples of the 4 courtyards were not too surprised. After all, Cheng Feiyan and Lu Ming were both disciples of the Vermilion Bird Hall. There was no reason for them to compete with each other and waste their combat strength. The fourth match, Duanmu Yunyang vs Zhua Yirong. The competition continued. Duanmu Yunyang and Zhua Yirong also had no suspense. Zhua Yirong had only made a few symbolic moves, and seeing that she was no match for him, she simply admitted defeat. Then came the fifth match, which was also the match that everyone paid more attention to in the first round. Bu Xingkai vs Duan Gang. Bu Xingkai, ranked 3rd on the bronze list, was known as the #1 spear user. His attack power was extremely strong. As for Duan Gang, he ranked 4th on the bronze ranking list and was known as the #1 defensive master. His defensive ability was unparalleled among the bronze disciples. On the other hand, his close combat ability was also very strong. This was a battle between the strong. Duan Gang, let me pierce through your turtle shell today. Bu Xingkai held a black spear and pointed it at Duan Gang. It was sharp and overbearing. If you have the ability, try it. Duan Gang's figure was burly and strong. His muscles were bulging, and one could tell at a glance that he was a body tempering expert. Kill. Formation breaking spear art. Bu Xingkai rushed toward Duan Gang and thrust his long spear. The sky was filled with spear shadows, and he attacked Duan Gang. Black turtle protection. Duan Gang let out a soft cry, and his body began to glow. 5 shields that looked like turtle shells condensed around his body. At the same time, he put on his spirit weapon gloves and clawed at Bu Xingkai. His sharp claw radiance was like a blade. As soon as they exchanged blows, the two of them began an intense battle. Bu Xingkai's attacks were like a storm, continuous. However, Duan Gang's defense was impenetrable. Every time Bu Xingkai's spear radiance stabbed at Duan Gang, it was blocked by the turtle shell shield around his body. For a moment, it was difficult to determine who was better. The disciples of the 4 courtyards were all watching intently. That's amazing. So, that's the power of the top 4 on the bronze list. Pang Shi was dumbfounded as he muttered to himself. Senior brother Lu Ming, who do you think will win? Pang Shi suddenly asked. Chapter 122. Chapter 122, The Two Geniuses Who Are Far Ahead. 549690339. Lu Ming sorted out his thoughts and said, both of them have cultivated the path of the physical body. Duan Gang's physical body should have reached the amazing complete grade 2, while Bu Shinkai's is in the upper tier of grade 2. But Duan Gang is focused on defense. Although he has also cultivated an offensive dark level martial skill, he has only cultivated it to the 3rd level. On the other hand, Bu Shinkai's spear technique has already reached the 5th level. As time goes on, Bu Shinkai will definitely win. Or, if Bu Shinkai has a killing move, he will win soon. Mu Lan looked at Lu Ming in surprise and said, Lu Ming, you have good taste. Look, Bu Shinkai is about to use his ultimate move. At this moment, Bu Shinkai leaped up from the fighting ring. His body was more than 20 meters high. Then, he pointed his long spear downward and stabbed toward Duan Gang. Toxic Dragon Drill, go! Bu Shinkai shouted. As he descended, the spear started to spin rapidly with the tip of the spear as the center. Indistinctly, a black evil dragon could be seen emerging with astonishing might. Black turtle protection, indestructible, shield. Duan Gang roared as he circulated his protective divine art with all his might. A total of 5 tortoiseshell-shaped shields completely covered his body. Boom! An earth-shattering boom was heard. The black and yellow lights almost flooded the fighting ring. After a while, a figure slid back quickly and coughed out a mouthful of blood. It was Duan Gang. Bu Shinkai, on the other hand, stood proudly with a long spear in his hand. Other than his heavy breathing, he was completely fine. Bu Shinkai had won. The crowd sighed, especially the disciples of the Onyx Tortoise Hall. Duan Gang had been defeated by Bu Shinkai. It seemed impossible for him to enter the top 3. Bu Shinkai is the winner of this round. Alright, the first round is over for today. Take a break. Those who have just unleashed their bloodline power will be given a blood clotting pill to recover as soon as possible. Then, we'll proceed to the second round. The judge announced. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. The mystical sword sect was really generous for this competition. They had even taken out blood clotting pills. The blood clotting pill could restore the power of one's bloodline for a short period of time after consumption, allowing one's bloodline to erupt again. It was extremely precious. Even the lowest grade that could restore the bloodline of a Master Realm martial artist was frighteningly expensive and extremely difficult to refine, so it was naturally extremely rare. About half an hour later, the second round of the competition began. The first match, Cheng Feiqing vs Shui Yirong, the judge announced. Everyone's spirits were lifted. Among the top 10, there were only 2 women. He didn't expect to meet them now. 2 graceful figures floated up and landed on the fighting ring. Both of them were extremely beautiful and were known as one of the 10 beauties of the mystical sword sect. Standing on the same stage, it was like a beautiful scene. Senior Sister Desk, please. Junior Sister Cheng, please. The 2 of them cupped their fists at each other and started fighting. Cheng Feiqing's weapon was a sword, and his bloodline was a fire spirit bird, so her sword technique was of the fire attribute. Sword chi burst forth, and it was extremely hot. Shui Yirong was using a 3-meter-long soft whip. With the addition of her plant-type Thousand Fate Vine, they complemented each other well. The soft whip in her hands was ever-changing, dazzling the eyes of the onlookers. 2 graceful figures even shuttled back and forth on the fighting ring like 2 dancing butterflies, which was pleasing to the eye. In the blink of an eye, the 2 had exchanged dozens of moves. In the end, Shui Yirong still lost because Cheng Feimore's flames were effective against her. There was not much change in his ranking on the bronze list. The ranking on the bronze ranking list was determined by the elder of the mystical sword sect based on the battle records, the combat strength of the participants, and the battle techniques they were good at. It had to be said that it was really accurate. The second match, Duanmu Chen vs Dong Ce. There was no suspense in this battle. Dong Ce tenaciously resisted more than a dozen moves and was still defeated. The third match, Zhong Muyun vs Bu Shinkai. This was the highlight of the show. Zhong Muyun, ranked first, versus Bu Shinkai, ranked third. Zhong Muyun was wearing a white robe and had a warm smile on his face. However, the moment he attacked, his sword chi was shocking and his sword light illuminated the 90 states. He was like a sword immortal. Although Bu Shinkai was powerful, he couldn't last more than 10 moves even with all his strength. 8 moves, he was defeated in just 8 moves. And Zhong Muyun didn't even activate his bloodline. Strong, too strong, Zhong Muyun was almost invincible. Now, everyone was looking forward to Duanmu Yunyang and Zhong Muyun's battle. Perhaps only Duanmu Yunyang could compete with Zhong Muyun. The fourth match, Duanmu Yunyang vs Ling Kong, it was another highlight, and the atmosphere was even more lively. This was another battle between two new generation kings from the White Tiger Hall. Ling Kong, do you still want to fight me? You should know that you're no match for me, Duanmu Yunyang said indifferently as he held his battle blade. Ha ha ha. Duanmu Yunyang, when did you see me surrender without a fight? Let's cut the crap and fight. He laughed loudly in the air. Then, he directly used the Mad Beast technique and burst out with his most powerful combat strength as he charged towards Duanmu Yun. Then I'll fulfill your wish, Duanmu Yunyang said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, he unsheathed his battle blade. As the battle sword was unsheathed, the surging blade energy came out. Buzz! A blade energy, more than 10 meters long, slashed down from the sky. Ling Kong roared like a mad beast. The iron rod brought about a loud rumbling sound as it smashed toward the blade light. With a loud bang, the fighting ring shook. Ling Kong's figure shook slightly, and his attack was blocked. However, Duanmu Yunyang's attacks were like water that had opened the floodgates. They surged and surged towards the sky in an endless stream. The domineering blade rays shot out one after another, as if they would never stop. 8 moves, just like how Zhong Muyun defeated Bu Shinkai, he was defeated in 8 moves and was cut off the fighting ring. That's amazing. Duanmu Yunyang and Zhong Muyun are far ahead of the top 10. It's hard for the others to compete with them. It's all up to the two of them. Perhaps they'll be able to put on an earth-shattering battle. The disciples of the 4 courtyards discussed excitedly. The 5th round, Lu Ming vs Duan Gang. At this moment, the judge announced the 5th match. It's here. The battle between Lu Ming and Duan Gang will determine who the top 5 will be. If Lu Ming can defeat Duan Gang, he'll definitely make it into the top 5 and compete with Bu Shinkai for the 3rd place to determine who's the bronze first spear user. That's right. However, according to my speculation, if Lu Ming only has the combat strength that he had when he fought with Ling Kong, it would be very difficult for him to break Duan Gang's defense unless he has other unique skill. That's hard to say. Can't you see that Lu Ming's blood meridian didn't erupt? This was really the case. I almost forgot. Amidst the discussions, Lu Ming stepped onto the fighting ring. Duan Gang stood in front of Lu Ming like an iron tower. At this moment, Duan Gang's expression was a little grave. At this point, he no longer dared to underestimate Lu Ming. He knew that he had to fight with all his might. Otherwise, he might very well be defeated by Lu Ming. Chapter 123. Chapter 123. Chapter 123 Unstoppable Winning Streak. 549690339. Junior brother Lu, please, please. The two of them cupped their fists. Boom. Then, Duan Gang stomped on the ground heavily. His tall body was like a chariot, charging toward Lu Ming in an overbearing manner. Duan Gang was a close combat expert, so he had to close the distance. Fire gun art broken armor. As soon as he made his move, Lu Ming used the armor fragment. The penetrative power of this move was extremely strong, second only to the last move, explosion. Black turtle protection. Duan Gang didn't hesitate and executed his defensive martial skill, and 5 tortoise-shell-shaped shields appeared. Clang. The spear struck one of the shields, and it actually made a sound of metal clashing. Lu Ming felt as if the long spear had stabbed into an iron mountain. The long spear bent into a bow shape. Lu Ming borrowed the rebound of the long spear and drifted backward. What a strong defense. Lu Ming was full of admiration. However, he did not know that Duan Gang's shock was even greater than his. He felt that his defense was almost penetrated by Lu Ming's long spear. Is this Lu Ming's ultimate move? If he isn't, then he's too powerful. He's even stronger than Bu Xingkai. Duan Gang was shocked, but he did not stop and continued to rush toward Lu Ming. His hand was like an eagle's claw, and he struck out a dozen sharp claw lights. Fire dance. Lu Ming's spear trembled and flames appeared one after another, destroying Duan Gang's claw radiance. Then, more than 10 flame flowers landed on Duan Gang's protective shield, causing ripples. Landslide. Lu Ming took advantage of the momentum and jumped up, his long spear smashing down on Duan Gang. Boom. The spear smashed into Duan Gang's protective shield, causing it to shake violently. Duan Gang's expression changed drastically, and his body staggered backward. He took 5 or 6 steps back before he could stabilize himself. He's retreating. Duan Gang has retreated. He's so strong. I feel that Lu Ming's attack is even stronger than when he was fighting Ling Kong yesterday. That's right. Did he hide his strength yesterday? This is unbelievable. On the viewing platform, Ling Kong's eyes revealed a beastly glint as he muttered, "This guy was clearly at the 4th level yesterday, but is already at the 5th level today. Could it be that he broke through last night? That's impossible, right?" LNU. As soon as Duan Gang retreated, Lu Ming cast the attack with the largest area of effect, moon canvas. A crescent moon formed and heavily struck Duan Gang's protective shield. Bang! Duan Gang retreated again. Lightning. Then, he became one with the spear and arrived as fast as lightning. This spear attack once again caused Duan Gang's protective shield to tremble. Ah! Duan Gang roared and threw a few punches in succession. He charged at Lu Ming without a care and shouted, "Lu Ming, if you have a unique skill, you should use it as soon as possible. You can't break my defense like this." From the start of the competition, he had been suppressed by Lu Ming. He was really aggrieved. In this case, he could not get close to Lu Ming at all. It was impossible for him to win. If he wanted to lose, he might as well lose in a straightforward manner. All right, as you wish. Explode. All the essential qi in Lu Ming's body surged out and rushed toward the long spear, gathering at the tip of the spear. Whoosh. Like a bolt of lightning, the spear streaked across the sky and once again stabbed into Duan Gang's protective shield. Boom. In an instant, the genuine qi at the tip of the spear suddenly erupted like a volcano that had been accumulating for thousands of years, erupting with a powerful and shocking destructive power. Catcher. Duan Gang's protective shield cracked and then exploded with a bang. Then, Duan Gang let out a blood-curdling screech, and his body flew far away. His entire body was covered in blood. Who? As Duan Gang flew out, all the disciples of the 4 courtyards let out a long breath. Lu Ming has won. He's in the top 5. It's a sure thing. I wonder who's stronger, him or Bu Xingkai? It seems to be Lu Ming. In the area of the White Tiger Hall, everyone from the Duanmu family had ugly expressions on their faces. Lu Yarou and Lu Yunxiong were even more so. They were gritting their teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. However, the Vermilion Bird Hall area was filled with cheers. This was because after Lu Ming defeated Duan Gang, the Vermilion Bird Hall would not be last in this year's competition no matter what. In the fighting ring, Duan Gang got up and said with a bitter smile, "Junior brother Lu Ming is indeed powerful. I'm sincerely convinced of my defeat." His physical body was extremely strong, so he didn't suffer too serious of an injury and could recover very quickly. "Senior brother Duan is too polite," Lu Ming said with a smile. Lu Ming is the winner of this round. The second round is over. We'll move on to the third round later, the judge announced. Soon, the third round began. In this round, Lu Ming's opponent was Duanmu Chen. There was no suspense in the battle between Lu Ming and Duanmu Chen. Lu Ming had suppressed Duanmu Chen throughout the entire battle and won in just a dozen moves. As for the others, those who had encountered Zhong Muyun and Duanmu Yunyang had all admitted defeat. Because there was no need to fight, it was better to save strength for the later matches. In the fourth round, Lu Ming vs Dong Ce. Without a doubt, he won easily. In this round, he was up against Bu Xingkai. The battle between the two of them was extremely intense. They fought for more than 100 moves. In the end, Bu Xingkai was the one who won and defeated Ling Kong. In the fifth round, Lu Ming was up against Bu Xingkai. This competition caused the entire place to boil with excitement. Because this battle could be said to be a battle for the third place. If Lu Ming won, there would be no problem for him to get third place. If Bu Xingkai won, the third place would be his. Moreover, both of them used guns, so it was more meaningful. In the fighting ring, the two of them stood opposite each other, each holding a spear. Lu Ming, let's decide the winner with one move. How about it? Bu Xingkai said in a deep voice. Good, that's just what I want. Lu Ming smiled. One shot to decide the outcome? Everyone was stunned for a moment, then they watched with even more excitement. A single shot to decide the outcome was more dangerous, but also more exciting. Boom. Boom. A powerful aura suddenly burst out from the two of them. Their auras collided and the two of them rushed out at the same time. Toxic Dragon Drill. Explode. The two of them executed their ultimate moves almost at the same time. The two spear shadows instantly cut through the void and collided together. It was as if two stars had collided. On the fighting stage, with the point of intersection of the two spears as the core, two colors emerged. One was fiery red and the other was black. The two colors were clearly separated and did not give in to each other. However, the stalemate only lasted for a moment. Suddenly, the fiery red side erupted like a volcano. A powerful force gushed out and instantly suppressed the black side. Bang! A figure flew far away and fell heavily on the ground. Without a doubt, it was Bu Xingkai. Bu Xingkai had lost, and his injuries were much more serious than Duan Gang's. Bang! The White Tiger Hall's headmaster smacked his seat, his face dark. The Vermilion Bird Hall's head burst into laughter. Lu Ming wins. The judge announced. There's no doubt that Lu Ming will be third. Oh my god. Didn't that mean that Lu Ming has broken senior brother Feng Wuji's record? That's terrifying. Someone exclaimed. In that case, wouldn't there be a genius even stronger than senior brother Feng Wuji in the mystical sword sect? That's hard to say. Being strong now doesn't mean that you'll be strong in the future. There will be many difficulties in the future. In history, there have been many people who were amazing in their youth, but when they grow up, their achievements are only average. That's true, but breaking senior brother Feng Wuji's record is already shocking enough. Chapter 124. Chapter 124, The Peak Battle. 5496903339, I really can't see through this guy. Does he really want to fight for first place? Mulan's face had been completely replaced by a smile. Pang Shi and Hua Kai were so excited that they were trembling and speechless. Then, the competition continued. After the fifth round was the sixth round. In the sixth round, Lu Ming was up against Ling Kong. Lu Ming and Ling Kong had already fought yesterday. Therefore, there was no need for them to fight again. Ling Kong simply admitted defeat. In the 6 rounds of competition, only 3 people had maintained a winning streak. They were Zhong Muyun, Duanmu Yunyang, and Lu Ming. By this time, the situation was slowly becoming clear. Zhong Muyun and Duanmu Yunyang were in first and second place. Lu Ming was in third place. Bu Xingkai should be in fourth place. As for the fifth and sixth place, it should be between Ling Kong and Duan Gang. In the latter part of the sentence, Dong Ce was almost in the 10th place. There was no suspense, and the difference should not be big. There were only 3 rounds left. Everyone's focus was on Zhong Muyun and Duanmu Yunyang. They wanted to know who would be the champion. Of course, there was still Lu Ming. Would Lu Ming be able to fight against the first 2? How many moves could he block? Everyone's attention was on these points. Under everyone's anticipation, the 7th round began. The first match of the 7th round, Ling Tian vs Duan Gang. This battle could be said to be the longest and most intense battle in the competition. Both of them were violent and bombarding the fighting ring like 2 demons fighting. After a few hundred moves, Duan Gang was the one who won in the end because the duration of the art of aerial beast frenzy had passed. The second match was Lu Ming against Zhuo Yirong. Zhuo Yirong simply admitted defeat. The third match finally ushered in the most important match, and also the match that everyone was most concerned about. Zhong Muyun vs Duanmu Yunyang. The pinnacle battle between the two of them had started ahead of schedule, meeting in the 7th round. Two figures, one from the east and one from the west, walked up to the fighting ring. In an instant, the entire place boiled over. One was the best swordsman, and the other was the best saber user. The battle between the first and second place on the bronze ranking list could stir up the blood of the young martial artists. Many people were speechless and stared at the two people in the fighting ring with wide eyes. Zhong Muyun, I lost to you a year ago. That was a disgrace to me. Now, I will take back the glory that belongs to me and step on you. Duanmu Yunyang's gaze was like a tiger's and was extremely overbearing. Even when facing Zhong Muyun, he was still arrogant and overbearing. This was his natural personality. He could be considered a tyrant. However, Zhong Muyun was more like a king. He had the posture of a dragon and a tiger, and his eyes were like stars. He always had a gentle smile on his face. Duanmu Yunyang, you lost to me last year. You don't stand a chance this year, and you won't stand a chance in the future. The gap between us will only grow further and further. Zhong Muyun's voice was calm and gentle, but it was filled with unparalleled confidence. If an ordinary person dared to say this, everyone would think that he was arrogant, and looked down on everyone. However, when Zhong Muyun said this, no one felt that he was arrogant or condescending. Instead, they felt that he was speaking the truth. Because he had the right to say so. I told you to take back your words. Take this. Duanmu Yunyang said coldly. Boom. A powerful aura erupted from Duanmu Yunyang's body. He didn't move, but a several-meter-long battle blade completely condensed from true qi appeared above his head. It cut through the air and charged toward Zhong Muyun. Buzz. With a sword cry, a giant sword formed above Zhong Muyun's head and slashed forward. Boom. The saber and the sword met, stirring up countless sword qi and saber radiance that shot out in all directions. Phut. The blade qi and sword qi hit the ground. If it were not for the inscriptions on the ground, it would have been full of holes. It was just a test, but it had already reached such a terrifying stage. Destruction Blade Art, Spirit Destruction. Duanmu Yunyang's battle blade was unsheathed. It was as if a demon had broken through its restraints and reappeared in the world. The terrifying blade light seemed to be able to split the void as it slashed toward Zhong Muyun. Buzz. The sound of a sword rang out. Zhong Muyun's body did not move, but his long sword was unsheathed. As soon as the sword was unsheathed, a sharp and merciless will filled the air, and the entire world seemed to be enveloped by his sword qi. Buzz. A light sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. If one did not listen carefully, one would not be able to hear it. A sword light flashed and shot out before the sound could be heard. Boom. This sword qi wasn't as overbearing as Duanmu Yunyang's blade light. However, it was able to destroy Duanmu Yunyang's blade light with a single strike. Obliteration Blade Art, Exterminate the Heavens. Duanmu Yunyang shouted. Duanmu Yunyang's entire body sank into a deathly silence as the blade was unleashed. He no longer had any feelings. Humans were heartless, but the saber was even more heartless. There was only an endless sharpness that could kill everything in the world. Four Seasons sword technique, overflowing with spring, break. Zhong Muyun made a faint sound and thrust his sword forward. In an instant, hundreds of sword qi appeared in the sky. The sword qi was fine and dense, like spring rain, and enveloped Duanmu Yunyang's blade technique. If Duanmu Yunyang's blade technique represented destruction, then Zhong Muyun's sword technique represented vitality and hope. The streaks of sword qi were like drops of spring rain. Although each drop was not powerful, when they were combined, their power was endless. The saber radiance and sword qi dissipated in the air. Wonderful, this is simply too wonderful. Zhong Muyun and Duanmu Yunyang's black-grade low-level martial arts techniques have already been cultivated to the highest level, man and martial arts as one. He's definitely at the realm of man and martial arts merging, far surpassing the others. Moreover, Their physical bodies are both complete rank 2. It's really amazing. Both of their bloodlines are at level 6. Their combat strength has completely exceeded the martial master realm. Killing an ordinary first-grade great martial master won't be a problem. Are they the top 2 geniuses on the bronze list? It's indeed shocking. Lu Ming's eyes were bright and he sighed in his heart. Beside him, Mulan glanced at Lu Ming and said, "How is it? This is the strength of Zhong Muyun and Duanmu Yunyang. Do you still have the confidence to obtain first place after seeing their battle strength?" "Why not?" Lu Ming said, revealing a meaningful smile. "This guy. You're pretending to be profound, right?" Mulan felt that she could not understand Lu Ming. She did not know if he was telling the truth. Obliteration blade art, world destruction. Duanmu Yunyang bellowed and instantly slashed out 18 times. Each of the 18 blade lights was extremely terrifying. The key was that the trajectory of each slash was erratic, like a wild horse out of control, jumping and unpredictable. 4 Seasons sword technique, scorching summer. The sound of a sword rang out, and a sword light appeared in the sky. It gave off a dazzling light, like a sun. Kai Kai. This sun was actually continuously shooting out dense sword chi. No matter how unpredictable Duanmu Yunyang's blade lights were, they all crumbled under the sword chi. The autumn wind is bleak. Then, Zhong Muyun's next move was unleashed. The fighting ring seemed to have fallen into a state of desolation. Everything was dead and the autumn wind was blowing. A lonely swordlight flashed across the sky and slashed toward Duanmu Yunyang. Boom! Duanmu Yunyang was forced to retreat rapidly. Chapter 125. Chapter 125. Chapter 125 Gold Force. 54969039. Duanmu Yunyang retreated while Zhong Muyun advanced. Winter Thunder Shock. Zhong Muyun instantly slashed out 9 swords. The sound of thunder rumbled as 9 lightning swords headed toward Duanmu Yunyang. World Annihilation. Duanmu Yunyang roared. A deathly white swordlight soared into the sky as he used all his strength to resist. After the light had dissipated, Duanmu Yunyang quickly retreated. A deep, bloody gash had appeared on his shoulder. "Duanmu Yunyang, I've said it before. You're not my match." Zhong Muyun's clothes were as white as snow as he stepped forward. With every step he took, the aura on his body grew stronger. With their cultivation, as long as they want to, they can break through to the martial grandmaster realm in the blink of an eye. There will be no bottlenecks in the martial grandmaster realm, and they can break through all the way. After all, they have accumulated too much. A powerful Silivera rank disciple exclaimed. "Ha ha ha, Zhong Muyun, you think you've won? Take my last move." Blood exterminating slash. Duanmu Yunyang laughed out loud. Blood gushed out from his wound and formed a blood blade in the air. Slash. Duanmu Yunyang waved his hand. The blood blade turned into a blood-red light and slashed toward Zhong Muyun. Zhong Muyun's eyes flickered, and a sword light whizzed out, hitting the blood blade. However, the blood saber suddenly dissipated and turned into a blood mist. Then, the blood mist condensed and turned into blood leopards that rushed toward Zhong Muyun. Whoosh! Whoosh! Zhong Muyun's long sword swept out, and streams of sword chi flew out, scattering the blood leopards. However, after the blood leopards scattered, they turned into blood mist and then condensed back into blood leopards again. It seemed endless. What a strange secret technique. Is this Duanmu Yunyang's trump card? I have never heard of Duanmu Yunyang knowing this secret technique. It seems that he has had a fortuitous encounter during this period of time. Could it be that Zhong Muyun is going to lose? Ha ha ha. Zhong Muyun, this blood obliteration slash is meant to deal with you. Today, you'll definitely lose. Duanmu Yunyang laughed wildly. Duanmu Yunyang, I thought you had some capabilities. Once your cultivation level is higher, this secret skill will no longer be of any use. Let me tell you what the Great Tao is. Break. As Zhong Muyun finished speaking, an extremely powerful aura rose from his body. An incomparably sharp, all-conquering, and all-conquering aura suddenly exploded out. That's right, it's Kai. Buzz. BZZZZ. At this moment, the big shots of the 4 halls, such as the 4 deans, the Sileva-robed elders, and the gold-robed elders, all stood up from their seats. In addition to the sect leader, there were also 2 bright lights in the sect leader's eyes. Force, it's the metal force. Jong Muyun has actually comprehended the control force. He's a genius, a genius. He actually comprehended control force at the master realm. Incredible. Haha, our mystical sword sect has another true genius. The Sileva-robed elders cried out in excitement. Hearing the Sileva-robed elders' words, the confused disciples were shocked. The bronze disciples, including most of the Sileva disciples, had not yet comprehended the control force, but they had heard of it and knew its power. How could they not be shocked? Kai. The force of metal was indestructible and extremely sharp. As soon as the metal force was used, everything was broken. In an instant, the blood leopards surrounding Jong Muyun were shattered and could no longer form again. Duanmu Yunyang let out a blood-curdling screech and retreated a dozen steps. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale. Ha, Jong Muyun, I didn't expect you to have comprehended control force. I lost, I didn't lose in vain. Duanmu Yunyang laughed miserably. A dispirited look appeared on his face. The overbearing aura that he had exuded earlier had disappeared without a trace. Jong Muyun was right. Secret techniques were just a small path. Controlling force was the true path. The earlier one comprehended controlling force, the more useful it would be in the future. Jong Muyun was able to comprehend the control force at the master realm, which meant that his talent was far above his. Perhaps he would never be able to catch up to Jong Muyun in his life. At this moment, he had lost all fighting spirit. Yunyang, what are you doing? Martial artists walk against the heavens. Only with the will to fight and become more courageous can one step into the peak of martial arts. You, wake up. The White Tiger Hall's headmaster suddenly shouted. The shout was like thunder, exploding in Duanmu Yunyang's ears. Duanmu Yunyang was startled and suddenly woke up. He was instantly scared and broke out in cold sweat. He was in a very dangerous situation just now. If he didn't wake up in time, his state of mind might be shattered, and he might lose his way on the path of martial arts, never to improve again. This was the so-called inner demon. Thank you, Principal. Duanmu Yunyang bowed to the White Tiger Hall's headmaster. Then, he looked at Jong Muyun. His eyes were filled with a domineering aura as he said, Jong Muyun, I will catch up to you sooner or later. I will take back the glory that belongs to me. Then, he turned around and left the fighting ring. Jong Muyun wins this round. Let's move on to the next round. The judge announced. The competition continued. However, after the peak battle just now, the next few matches could no longer arouse the interest of the crowd. In most people's eyes, the results of this competition were already out. The first place would definitely go to Jong Muyun, and the second place would go to Duanmu Yunyang. Although there were still 2 more rounds, there was no suspense. Not long after, the 7th round ended. After a short rest, the 8th round began. There were not many changes in the first 4 matches, as the outcome was within everyone's expectations. The 5th match, Lu Ming vs Duanmu Yunyang. The judge announced the names of the players in the 5th match. Everyone's spirits were slightly lifted. Finally, it was time for the battle between Lu Ming and Duanmu Yunyang. Previously, Lu Ming had repeatedly slapped the Duanmu family's people in the face. Duanmu Yunyang had said that he would make Lu Ming lose unsightly. Lu Ming also responded strongly. The 2 of them had yet to fight, but sparks were already flying. Now that they had finally met, what would the result be? How many moves could Lu Ming block? Would he be badly abused? The 2 of them walked onto the fighting ring and stood opposite each other. Lu Ming, it's finally our turn. I still keep my word. If you don't admit defeat quickly, you'll be defeated very badly. Duanmu Yunyang's voice was ice-cold and still extremely overbearing. How could he be defeated so easily? Are you talking about yourself? Previously, you were indeed defeated very unsightly and gracelessly. Your heart of martial Dao almost collapsed. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He was referring to the battle between Duanmu Yunyang and Zhong Muyun. Lu Ming, you shouldn't have brought this up. Since you've brought it up, it's not something that can be resolivered by a terrible defeat. Duanmu Yunyang's expression turned completely cold. It was as cold as the Arctic Ocean. Killing intent flickered in his eyes. He did not bother to hide it. Duanmu Yunyang has the intention to kill. Lu Ming is in trouble. Lu Ming is acting on impulse. He shouldn't have provoked Duanmu Yunyang. That's right. Other than not being allowed to harm lives, there are no other restrictions on the fighting ring. If Lu Ming refuses to admit defeat, even the sect master will not be able to interfere. Lu Ming's consequences are worrying. Some disciples shook their heads. They felt that Lu Ming's actions were unwise. This would only anger Duanmu Yunyang even more. Why bother? Chapter 126. Chapter 126. Breakthrough, Breakthrough. 5496903339. However, Lu Ming's expression was still calm. He sneered and said, "You lost to Zhong Muyun, and your martial heart almost collapsed. I wonder what will happen after you lose to me." Lost to you? How could I, Duanmu Yunyang, lose to a newbie? This is the funniest joke in the world. Lu Ming, don't think that you can disturb my state of mind by using this method. What a joke. Your path ends here. Destruction blade art, spirit destruction. Amidst his laughter, Duanmu Yunyang unsheathed his saber. An overbearing saber radiance slashed toward Lu Ming. The moment he slashed out, he had already activated his bloodline. Broken armor. In an instant, Lu Ming circulated the true war dragon technique to the extreme. A majestic dragon-shaped vital energy surged in his strong body and poured into the long spear. Along the long spear, a powerful spinning cutting force erupted. Ding, ding. The long spear accurately pierced the edge of the blade. A loud boom rang out. Duanmu Yunyang's body did not move an inch, but Lu Ming's body swayed slightly and he took a step back. He blocked it. Senior brother Lu Ming blocked Duanmu Yunyang's attack. Pang Shi cried out in excitement. Beside them, Mu Lan, Feng Wu, Hua Kai, and the other Vermilion Bird Hall disciples, including the Vermilion Bird Hall's dean, were all overjoyed as they stared unblinkingly at the arena. Although Lu Ming was at a disadvantage, he was only at a slight disadvantage. At this point, it would be a lie if they did not want Lu Ming to win. Although he knew that the possibility was low, he still had a glimmer of hope that Lu Ming could create a miracle. Seeing that Lu Ming had blocked Duanmu Yunyang's attack, he was overjoyed. This Duanmu Yunyang is indeed powerful. Lu Ming felt that his palm was a little numb and he pondered in his heart. Duanmu Yunyang's physical body had already achieved complete second grade, 2 levels higher than Lu Ming's. Furthermore, the black-grade low-level martial arts technique had already been cultivated to the 6th stage, the realm of man and martial arts as one. Furthermore, he had a level 6 bloodline. When combined, the explosive power was extremely terrifying. Lu Ming's physical body and martial arts techniques were at a disadvantage. The only thing he could rely on was the true war dragon technique's rich and condensed essential qi. But it was still not enough. You're quite capable to be able to block an attack with 80% of my power. However, that's all. Kill. When Duanmu Yunyang saw that he had only gained a slight upper hand in this attack, the killing intent in his eyes became even more intense. He burst out with all his strength and circulated his true qi to the extreme. His aura instantly became a bit stronger. A ray of saber light, which was stronger than the previous one, slashed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming, you have to block it. Mu Lan, Feng Wu, and the others clenched their fists tightly. Their palms were covered in cold sweat as they stared at the battlefield. Landslide. Lu Ming's long spear swept out and clashed with the saber again. Boom. This time, Lu Ming kept retreating 7 to 8 steps, his blood and qi in his body churning. Lu Ming is no match for them. From the looks of it, Lu Ming will definitely lose within 10 moves. It seems that Lu Ming's blood meridian has not erupted yet. Indeed. It's strange. However, under such circumstances, even if he were to activate his bloodline, he would still not be able to escape defeat. Don't forget that Duanmu Yunyang still has a secret technique that he has yet to use. Not bad. Seeing this situation, sighs could be heard from all around. Should I use Chisha? Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Then, he rejected the idea. Lu Ming was confident that he would be able to defeat Duanmu Yunyang if he were to use the force of fire. But this was not the result he wanted. He had an idea, a crazy idea. He wanted to make use of Duanmu Yunyang's pressure to break through his cultivation. Otherwise, with his current cultivation base, even if he could defeat Duanmu Yunyang, it would be difficult to defeat Zhong Muyun, who had also comprehended the control force. Only with great pressure could he break through his limits and break through his cultivation. Only then could he fight Zhong Muyun. Let's see how you're going to take my third saber, World Annihilation. Duanmu Yunyang roared as 18 blade lights were released from his battle blade. Each of the 18 blade lights was ever-changing and unpredictable. Each of them was extremely powerful, as if they could kill everything. It was known as the world-destroying one. Although it was an exaggeration, one could still see its power. It seems like I can only activate my bloodline. Lu Ming's eyes flickered and he activated his blood meridian without hesitation. There was a flash of blood-red light and Lu Ming's aura grew. A surge of devouring power covered his entire body. Lu Ming's strength increased by 40% and he charged directly at the saber ray. Boom! Boom! In an instant, Lu Ming was drowned by the 18 sword gleams. On the fighting ring, there were only pale sword gleams and fiery red spear gleams, as well as a series of booming sounds. Can Lu Ming block it? At the scene, everyone's eyes were fixed on the fighting ring for fear of missing out on the important scene. After 18 consecutive explosions, a figure rushed out. His long spear turned into a half-moon and swept toward Duanmu Yunyang. It was Lu Ming. He was not injured at all. Although Duanmu Yunyang's blade radiance was powerful, half of the attack had been devoured by Lu Ming's spirit-devouring bloodline. The remaining attacks could no longer harm Lu Ming. Duanmu Yunyang's expression changed when he saw that Lu Ming was not injured and was even charging at him with an attack that was stronger than before. Slash. In a hurry, he slashed out with his saber. Clang. Duanmu Yunyang's body trembled and he couldn't help but slide back more than 10 meters. Unfortunately, the aura on Lu Ming's body had weakened greatly. The burst of his bloodline could only last for 5 breaths, which was too short. Lu Ming, damn it, go to hell. Blood exterminating slash. Duanmu Yunyang flew into a rage after being forced back by Lu Ming's spear. He slashed his arm with his saber and a stream of blood spurted out. It formed a blood-red saber in the air and slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed and he retreated quickly. However, the blood-red saber seemed to have a mind of its own as it chased after Lu Ming. Lightning. The spear struck the blood-red saber. The saber was crushed by the spear and turned into a blood mist. Then, it condensed into blood leopards that pounced at Lu Ming. In an instant, Lu Ming was enveloped by the blood leopards. Lu Ming, enjoy it. It's not bad that you can force me to use this move, but that's all there is to it. Haha. Duanmu Yunyang laughed wildly. Stop. Stop. Duanmu Yunyang, you've won this battle. Stop your secret technique. Mu Lan cried out with an unsightly expression. Stop. Mu Lan, Lu Ming didn't admit defeat himself. The battle is still in progress. How can he stop? Duanmu Yunyang sneered. Mu Lan's expression was ugly. Lu Ming, she called out, the battle ends here. Admit defeat. However, Lu Ming turned a deaf ear to it and focused all his energy on fighting the blood leopards that were pouncing at him from all directions. Lu Ming's energy, qi, and spirit were highly concentrated. He circulated the true war dragon technique to the extreme and fought the blood leopards that pounced at him from all directions. The long spear swept out, and the blood leopards were destroyed. However, they immediately condensed again and continued to attack endlessly. Lu Ming fought with all his might and raised his potential to the maximum. 9th grade Master Realm, break. His potential was stimulated in the great battle. Lu Ming fought as he broke through. After countless attacks, The barrier to the ninth grade master realm finally loosened. Boom. In the end, there was a loud boom as the barrier was broken. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth gathered toward Lu Ming in a frenzy. And NBSB, hoo. Lu Ming's body seemed to be breathing. The essential qi in his body was getting stronger and thicker. Breakthrough. Lu Ming is breaking through. A Sileva-robed elder shouted madly. Chapter 127. Chapter 127, You're not worthy to be my opponent. 5496903339. Oh my God, he's really breaking through. He's breaking through in the middle of a great battle. This is crazy. The crowd was already boiling. Lu Ming had actually made a breakthrough in the middle of an intense battle. How strong and determined did he need to be to achieve this? Ordinary people simply couldn't do it. Breakthrough? No, that's not right. In that case, Lu Ming did not reach ninth grade master realm before. This. Many of the disciples looked at each other. It was only then that they realized that Lu Ming had not reached the ninth grade master realm. Previously, Lu Ming's performance was too strong, and his true qi was condensed and strong. Most of the disciples of the four courtyards naturally thought that Lu Ming's cultivation was at the ninth grade master realm. Other than a few Sileva-robed elders and above who had already seen through it, most of the disciples thought so. Now, he suddenly realized that Lu Ming's cultivation was only at the peak of the 8th grade master realm. This was too unbelievable. All of them stood there with their mouths agape. And NBSB, hoo. The spirit qi between heaven and earth continued to gather towards Lu Ming. The aura on Lu Ming's body rose rapidly. Boom. Lu Ming's momentum was like a rainbow. He had officially stepped into the 9th grade master realm. Lu Ming, even if you have a breakthrough in your cultivation, what's the use? You're destined to lose today, Duanmu Yunyang roared after a brief moment of shock. Oh, really? Ellen Yu. After stepping into the 9th grade master realm, Lu Ming's essential qi had doubled. The long spear swept out, and a thunderous sound was heard. Bang! Bang! As the spear swept across, the blood leopards exploded in the air one by one, but they continued to condense, but their speed was much slower than before. Duanmu Yunyang's move wasn't unbreakable. As long as the power reached a certain level, it would also collapse. Just like Zhong Muyun's control force, he destroyed this move in one move. Lu Ming, you've forced me to do this. Blood exterminating slash. Duanmu Yunyang roared and spat out a mouthful of blood. There was even a drop of blood essence in the blood. Duanmu Yunyang was going all out. He could not accept being defeated by Lu Ming. He had even forced out a drop of blood essence. One must know that there were only 9 drops of blood essence in the human body. It was extremely difficult to recover after using 1 drop. This was a matter that would greatly damage one's vitality. The blood condensed in the air and turned into blood leopards that pounced at Lu Ming. These blood leopards were more solid than the previous ones and were more powerful. Ha, Lu Ming, let's see how you're going to break this. Go to hell. Duanmu Yunyang laughed crazily. The killing intent in his eyes was extremely cold. Lu Ming was not afraid at all. He held his spear and stood quietly on the fighting ring. He looked indifferently at the blood leopard that was pouncing at him and muttered, Duanmu Yunyang, my cultivation base has already broken through. It's time to end this farce. What? Duanmu Yunyang was stunned. The presidents of the 4 great academies, the Sileva-robed elders, and the disciples of the 4 great academies were all stunned. A farce? What do you mean by that? But in the next moment, they knew what it meant. Boom. A terrifying aura suddenly burst out from Lu Ming's body. The aura was brutal and powerful. Everyone seemed to see a volcano erupting, and hot lava spewed out, wreaking havoc in the world. Force, the force of fire. All the disciples, Sileva-robed elders, and deans of the 4 great academies widened their eyes and mouths in disbelief as they looked at the tall figure on the fighting ring. The air seemed to have frozen at this moment, and the entire place was silent. Lu Ming had actually comprehended the control force. It was too shocking. It was already shocking enough that Jong Muyun could comprehend force. However, he had already been in the sect for more than 3 years. But he had just entered this year. Break. At this moment, a cold voice was heard. Lu Ming thrust his spear forward. The surging aura, combined with his martial arts technique, turned into a spear ray and blasted out. Boom. The blood leopards that were pouncing towards Lu Ming were instantly crushed and dissipated into the air. The spear's radiance continued to bombard Duanmu Yunyang's body. Duanmu Yunyang let out a blood-curdling scream and was sent flying far away. Duanmu Yunyang has been defeated. It was not known who shouted, but it instantly ignited the entire scene, and the entire place fell into a clamor. Lu Ming, Jong Muyun muttered as he stood up from his seat. His eyes were filled with a strong desire to fight. The 4 chiefs and the sect leaders also stood up from their seats. Their eyes flickered, and their expressions were different. Impossible? Impossible? How is that possible? Lu Yunxiong and Lu Yarrow kept shaking their heads, finding it hard to accept this. Why? Why? On the battle stage, Duanmu Yunyang was struggling to get up. His hair was disheveled and he was shouting hysterically. He couldn't bear all this. Lu Ming looked at Duanmu Yunyang indifferently and said, Duanmu Yunyang, weren't you very confident before that you would never lose to me and that it would be the biggest joke in the world to lose to me? Then, what about now? Lu Ming took a step forward and glared at Duanmu Yunyang. Duanmu Yunyang, you're arrogant and conceited. You have no regard for anyone and keep saying that you want to take back the glory that belongs to you. Other than relying on your family, what are you? Without the Duanmu family, you are nothing. Lu Ming's every word was like a sharp blade, stabbing into Duanmu Yunyang's heart. No, it's not like that. You're talking nonsense, you're talking nonsense. How could this be? Duanmu Yunyang's hair was disheveled as he shouted like a madman. Previously, he was extremely overbearing and confident. He did not take Lu Ming seriously at all and thought that he would never lose. However, the reality was that he was defeated in front of everyone. To a proud person like him, it was a huge blow. Lu Ming, shut up. The White Tiger Hall's headmaster bellowed, his voice booming like thunder. Yunyang, wake up. The headmaster of the White Tiger Hall wanted to use the same old trick to wake Duanmu Yunyang up. Unfortunately, Duanmu Yunyang didn't regain his consciousness like before. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. He ignored the White Tiger Hall's dean and shouted, Duanmu Yunyang, you will never be my opponent after today's defeat. Furthermore, you are not worthy of being my opponent. You're not worthy to be my opponent. These words directly struck the depths of Duanmu Yunyang's heart. No, I won't. I'm invincible. Duanmu Yunyang let out a loud cry. His eyes turned red, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he fell to the ground and fainted. Damn it, you little bastard, I'm going to kill you. The White Tiger Hall's dean was furious. An aura as deep as the ocean rose from his body, powerful to the extreme, and pressed toward Lu Ming. In that instant, Lu Ming felt as if he was being crushed by a huge mountain. He was unparalleled. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his figure was pushed back dozens of meters. Duanmu Pejuan, what are you doing? The Vermilion Bird Hall chief was furious. He also released a powerful aura to block the White Tiger Hall chief's aura. What are you doing? Lu Ming, that little bastard, deliberately destroyed Yunyang's state of mind and ruined his martial arts path. He deserves to be punished and killed. The headmaster of the White Tiger Hall roared. Chapter 128. Chapter 128. This is the true pinnacle of battle. 5496903339. Laughable. Lu Ming was fearless in the face of the White Tiger Hall's headmaster. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and faced the other party. What evil intentions? I'm only speaking the truth. If Duanmu Yunyang can't even withstand such a small blow, then what's the point of cultivating martial arts? Audacious. These were the words that emerged in everyone's hearts. Lu Ming was too bold. He actually dared to talk back to the White Tiger Hall's headmaster. He was the headmaster of the hall. How audacious! The White Tiger Hall's headmaster's hair stood on end. As he roared, the clouds in the sky changed color. A 100-meter-long battle saber materialized, and its terrifying aura blotted out the sky and covered the earth, enveloping the entire area. Everyone felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them. Boom! Boom! The chiefs of the Azure Dragon Hall and the Onyx Tortoise Hall burst with two powerful forces. The vast power spread out and covered the disciples of the two halls, blocking the powerful pressure. Duanmu Pajuan, don't you have any sense of shame? Do you want to attack a junior? The Vermilion Bird Hall chief's eyes turned cold. 100-meter-long giant sword appeared in the sky, and an aura that was no weaker than the White Tiger Hall chiefs burst forth. A saber and a sword shook as they faced each other. In the sky, rumbling sounds could be heard. The disciples of the four courtyards all looked at the sky in shock. Was this the strength of the four great academies' deans? With a single thought, the weather changed. This kind of power had already exceeded the scope of mortals and was too terrifying. The Shenyuan sect leader frowned and waved his hand. A gentle force surged out. However, this force seemed gentle, but it contained incredible power. The swords formed by the White Tiger and Vermilion Bird Hall deans were instantly destroyed, turning into energy and dissipating in the sky. You two are the deans of the first courtyard. How can you make a big fuss in front of the disciples? Injuries are inevitable on the fighting stage. Now, quickly get someone to carry Duanmu Yunyang down for treatment. A cold voice came from the sect leader of the mystical sword sect. Also, Lu Ming. The sect leader looked at Lu Ming and said, Dean Duanmu is the dean of the first institution, after all. You have to respect your seniors when you speak to them in the future. Don't go against your seniors just because you're young, understand? I know, sect leader. Lu Ming cupped his fists and quit while he was ahead. The headmaster of the White Tiger Hall furrowed his brows. The sect leader was obviously trying to protect Lu Ming by directly pushing the blame of the rebuttal to Lu Ming's young age. He was at a loss for words. Today, Duanmu Yunyang had already lost enough face. If he wanted to pursue the matter, he would inevitably end up with a reputation of being a bully. That would be even more embarrassing. Lu Ming. A hint of killing intent flashed across the White Tiger Hall's headmaster's eyes. With a wave of his sleeve, he said, Take Yunyang back for treatment. The disciples of the White Tiger Hall immediately carried Duanmu Yunyang away. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Duanmu Yunyang's state of mind had already been broken. If he could not walk out of it, his martial path in this life would end here. It would be very difficult for him to continue. Lu Ming is the winner of this battle, the judge announced. With the announcement of the judge, the disciples of the four halls turned their attention back to the competition. There's still one last round. Zhong Muyun and Lu Ming are going to face each other in this round. Which one of them will win? It's hard to say now. After all, the two of them have comprehended control force. I didn't expect this. After Duanmu Yunyang and Zhong Muyun's battle, I thought that there was no more suspense. I didn't expect Lu Ming to be so powerful. It's beyond my imagination. A battle of the peak. This is a battle of the peak. The clash of power. This year's bronze-level competition is too exciting. It was extremely rare for two bronze disciples to comprehend the control force. If one appeared, another would appear every few years. However, there might not be two at the same time even after decades. This was a rare situation, and everyone was looking forward to it. Before this, no one thought that Lu Ming was Zhong Muyun's match. However, after Lu Ming burst out with his aura, he was completely capable of fighting Zhong Muyun. The 9th round begins. After half an hour of rest, the judge announced the start of the 9th round. It was unknown if the ruling was intentional or if it was a coincidence, but the battle between Zhong Muyun and Lu Ming was placed at the end. The first 4 matches passed quickly. Duanmu Yunyang did not participate in the battle. Finally, it was the last match. The 5th match, Lu Ming vs Zhong Muyun. With the judge's announcement, the bottom line ignited the atmosphere of the audience. Countless people began to shout, Lu Ming, you can do it, Lu Ming, senior brother Lu Ming is invincible. Lu Ming is so handsome. I want to bear your children. Nest, will Lu Ming take a fancy to you? You're shameless, get lost. Lu Ming is definitely interested in me. You're the shameless one. Why don't you look in the mirror? Can you compare to me? The disciples of the Vermilion Bird Hall cheered for Lu Ming crazily. There were even many young female disciples who were shouting with infatuation. There were even some female disciples who were jealous and fought with each other. Lu Ming was young, but his cultivation level was extremely high. There was no need to mention his talent. Moreover, he was handsome and had a great attraction to girls. It was normal. Go, senior brother Zhong Muyun. Senior brother Zhong Muyun will definitely win. The Azure Dragon Hall's people were also shouting. Zhong Muyun's popularity was also extremely exuberant. It was just that he and Zhua Yirong were already a public couple, which broke the hearts of many girls. The two of them entered the fighting ring amidst the cheers. After half an hour, Lu Ming had been shaken by the aura of the White Tiger Hall's dean. He had only suffered some minor injuries and was no longer in serious danger. Junior brother Lu Ming, I didn't expect the final battle to be with you. Zhong Muyun smiled. His smile was gentle and comfortable. This wasn't an act, it was an innate ability. In fact, Zhong Muyun was very popular in the mystical sword sect. Not only was he talented, but he was also gentle and sincere. He would not act high and mighty just because he was talented. Therefore, Zhong Muyun's friends were all over the mystical sword sect. Lu Ming had a good impression of Zhong Muyun. He cupped his fists and said, "Senior brother Zhong, it's my honor to be able to fight you." Ha ha ha, that's exactly what I wanted to say. However, although junior brother Lu's talent is far above mine, it won't be that easy to defeat me today. Zhong Muyun smiled. I will do my best. Alright, let's do our best. The two of them looked at each other, and a powerful aura burst out from their bodies at the same time. One was extremely sharp and indestructible. A wave of violent heat burned everything. Boom. Even before he moved, the two's momentum had already begun to clash and collide. With a loud boom, the fighting ring was suddenly replaced by a sharp and hot aura, which spread out in all directions. The disciples on Lu Ming's side suddenly felt as if they were enveloped by a scorching and violent aura. It was as if they had been placed in a furnace and they felt extremely uncomfortable. On Zhong Muyun's side, everyone felt a sharp pain on their skin, as if they were being cut by sharp sword energy. If not for the Silivera-robed elders' timely intervention, many of the weaker cultivators would have been severely injured on the spot. Level 4 Sword Art, Scorching Summer, Fire Gun Art, Mountain Collapse. The two of them launched their attacks at the same time, rushing towards each other. Chapter 129. Chapter 129, Number 1 of the Four Courtyards. 5496903339. The two figures crossed the distance of 50 meters in an instant and collided. Clang. A strong wind blew, and the two of them flew back after the blow, but in the next moment, they continued to fight. Zhong Muyun's swordsmanship combined with metal force became extremely sharp. There was nothing that it couldn't break. On the other hand, Lu Ming's spear technique combined with the force of fire. It was overbearing and destructive. Both of them were the representatives of attacks and had extremely strong offensive power. Naturally, there was nothing fancy about the battle. They fought openly and wildly like a storm. The disciples of the Four Courtyards and the elders in the stands stared at the arena without blinking, staring at the two figures in the fierce battle on the fighting ring. For those who were not strong enough, they could only see two figures fighting on the fighting ring. They could not see the exact situation of the battle. Ding, 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 ding. In a few breaths, the two had exchanged dozens of moves, and the hot sparks flew everywhere. This kind of soul-shaking battle made everyone forget to breathe, and their faces were red. The explosions became more and more frequent, and the two of them fought faster and faster, their battle more and more intense. Wonderful, this is simply wonderful. You saw the details of their fight. It's exciting because I can't see it clearly. The insiders looked at the tricks, while the outsiders watched the fun. Some of the disciples with lower cultivation bases watched with great interest, while some of the disciples with higher cultivation bases watched with a serious expression. Sect leader, who do you think will win? A golden-robed elder asked the sect leader of the mystical sword sect. The mystical sword sect leader smiled and said, both of them have just comprehended their Sha not long ago. They're both at the beginner level, so it's hard to tell who's stronger. Zhong Muyun's physical body and martial arts technique are stronger than Lu Ming's, but Lu Ming's cultivation technique is no small matter. His essential qi is rich and condensed, which is stronger than Zhong Muyun's. But from what I understand, Zhong Muyun has more than one black-level martial arts technique, and Lu Ming's blood meridian has not erupted either. However, Lu Ming's blood meridian is very peculiar, and it seems like it can only erupt for a few breaths. Hence, it's hard to predict the outcome of this battle. The two of them are both people with profound fortune, each with their own opportunities. A gold-robed elder sighed. After so many battles, the unique characteristics of Lu Ming's essential qi and blood could not be hidden from the eyes of the sect leader and the golden-robed elder of the mystical sword sect. However, in the world of martial Dao, everyone had their own opportunities. This was very normal. With their status, they naturally would not covet the opportunities of a few juniors. They were even happier when their disciples had opportunities. This way, the sect would become even stronger in the future. I can't win. Lu Ming must not win. Lu Yarou and Lu Yunxiong's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They kept screaming in their hearts, hoping that Zhong Muyun would win. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming and Zhong Muyun had exchanged more than 100 moves. More than a minute has passed. There's less than a minute left before Zhong Muyun's bloodline power burst. Lu Ming's mind was racing. Two-handed sword doctrine. At that moment, a long sword appeared in Zhong Muyun's other hand. He held a long sword in each hand and attacked Lu Ming. Two-handed sword. Lu Ming was shocked. Not only him, but everyone else was also shocked. Two-handed swords were not something that just anyone could master. It could be said that only those with extraordinary talent could master it. Two-handed swords. The power of two swords working together was even stronger, and NBSB, whoosh. The entire sky was filled with sword shadows that were aimed at Lu Ming. There's actually such a move. Let's decide the winner. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Then, there was a flash of blood and his blood meridian exploded. Explode. Taking advantage of his blood meridian eruption, Lu Ming cast his strongest move. The true qi in his body rushed toward the long spear and gathered at the tip of the spear. It condensed into a point and then exploded. Boom. Clang. Clang. There was a violent explosion, followed by the rapid sound of metal clashing. Buzz. A figure flew out. It was Zhong Muyun. He was panting heavily, and a part of his sleeve had disappeared. Lu Ming stood where he was, panting heavily. Using the explosion consumed a lot of essential qi. However, he was unscathed. How is it? Everyone in the audience stared at the fighting ring with their hearts in their mouths. I've lost. Suddenly, Zhong Muyun sighed. What? Zhong Muyun admitted defeat. Could it be that the victor had already been decided? I think they're both fine. Are you blind? Didn't you see that part of Zhong Muyun's sleeve was shattered? Geniuses like them don't need to be injured to determine the winner. One move, or even half a move, would be enough to determine the winner. I see. Oh my God, isn't Lu Ming the first place this time? That's right. He's a dark horse, but he's a dark horse too. He's a dark horse all the way to the end. Before the start of the competition, no one had expected that Lu Ming would come in first. Most of the people felt that it was already very shocking that Lu Ming could enter the top 30. No one would think that Lu Ming would get first place, not even in their dreams. Almost everyone thought that the first place would be between Zhong Muyun and Duanmu Yunyang. But the truth made everyone's jaws drop. Impossible, impossible. Lu Yarou and Lu Yunxiong were dumbfounded. I can't let this go on. I can't let Lu Ming continue to develop. If this goes on, there will be no place for me in the future. I must think of a way to kill him. After recovering from his shock, Lu Yunxiong's eyes were filled with killing intent. Thanks for letting me win. On the fighting ring, Lu Ming cupped his fists. Lu Ming is the winner of this battle. The judge announced loudly. Boom. The crowd instantly boiled over, especially the Vermilion Bird Hall disciples, who were screaming madly. Lu Ming is invincible. Long live Lu Ming. Lu Ming, I love you. All the Vermilion Bird Hall disciples, regardless of gender, started to scream. It was no wonder they were so crazy. All these years, the Vermilion Bird Hall had always been at the bottom of the 4 halls and had been ridiculed by the other halls. It was impossible to say that they didn't feel sullen. But now, a new disciple from the Vermilion Bird Hall had won the bronze level competition. This was an honor for the entire Vermilion Bird Hall. They felt like they had won and could hold their heads up high. Naturally, they went crazy. Among them, Pang Shuo, Feng Wu, and the others were the loudest. Lu Ming walked down the Colosseum with a smile. Naturally, he was surrounded by a group of Vermilion Bird Hall disciples. Some female disciples, in particular, were trying their best to squeeze them sleevers onto Lu Ming. Although Lu Ming was not a gentleman, he was still embarrassed. It took her a lot of effort to squeeze to Mulan's side. Hey, you guys are too disloyal. Why didn't you come and help me? Lu Ming was sweating profusely. It was more tiring than having a big battle. Lu Ming, you're the most popular person in the Vermilion Bird Hall now. It feels good, right? Mulan seemed to be smiling yet not. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.